to order at 6:31 p.m. At this time, I would like you all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And this evening, as you say the Pledge of Allegiance, instead of just going through rote, I would ask you to please reflect on the words. And for me personally, in particular, the final and justice for all, because as an educational system, we are trying to provide justice because education truly is the great equalizer. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have 2 items to report from closed session.
Thank you.
You don't have OCD, do you? Okay, on a motion from Chris Trunke, seconded by Matt Watson, the board voted to approve claim number 22-23 9 in the amount of $7,250. On a motion by Matt Watson, seconded by Cassandra Love, the board voted to approve claim 22-23-20 in the amount of $105,600. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda for May 23, 2023?
Move to approve.
A second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is approved. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of the governing board for May 9th, 2023?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I do not approve of the minutes, so I'd like to explain why if I can.
Okay.
So 2 weeks ago, we had about 12 families come from Emblem to talk about their stories at school. And per board policy, it's our responsibility to accurately summarize what those public speakers spoke about. And based on the meeting minutes, we did not do that. And I just find it interesting that back on 214, we had the same amount of time allotted, give or take a minute or two, and we accurately summarized all 18 speakers, but we did not summarize the 12 families that came and spoke for Emblem. It's our responsibility to do that per board policy, and we're in violation of doing so. Personally, if I was one of those parents, I definitely would come back up and share my story again and mandate that it be accurately summarized within the minutes. I don't know what the process is for reviewing the minutes before it coming to board approval, but I would like to look at that to ensure that we are accurately summarizing public comments.
Well, at this time, we'll vote whether or not to approve. So if they're not approved, they will be rewritten.
I
So
think we already had a vote.
did we?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your comments. The minutes from the 9th are approved. You're right. Okay, at this time, we're going to recognize the classified employees of the year. And I know I say this every year, but my mother was a classified employee, so this is a special evening for me. Dr. Stevenson.
All right, this is exciting. It's exciting to see everybody here. Obviously, we know our classified employees are the backbone of our school district, and we would not exist without these wonderful people that really support us and get us through the day and the year. 365 days a year, right? You're all here. We are honored tonight to recognize 17 employees as classified employees of the year. These employees are selected by their sites or departments. So we have one for each school site, then we have one for the district office and one for maintenance and operations. What we will do this evening is we will have an alphabetical order, but this is going to be tricky because we have district office and maintenance and operations in there. So I'm going to challenge schools to figure it out. But we will have you administrators come up and announce your classified employee of the year selection. We have some certificates and crystals awards, and then we'll have you have a seat after you're up at the podium. And then once everyone is done, then we'll have all of our classified employees of the year come up here to be recognized by the board. All right. Got it? All right. All right, Ms. Humphries, Bridgeport.
You like that a little bit better. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Humphries, and I am the principal of Bridgeport Elementary School, and this is Mia Stanley. Hello, at Bridgeport, and we have the honor of recognizing our Classified Employee of the Year, Javier Zaragoza. Javier is our head custodian at Bridgeport Elementary School. Javier has been the head custodian for 6 years, but has worked with the district for 22 years. He actually started working with his father at Bridgeport. Wow. Javier does a great job keeping our school site safe and clean. He is knowledgeable and skilled with all the tools and equipment. We have stuff falling out of our cabinets with all the equipment, but he knows what to do with each and every one of those. He is responsive to all of the staff needs and without argument or complaint. He's able to complete his daily duties and also makes time to handle all the special requests that he gets by staff and the little emergencies that pop up day to day. And there are many, right, Javier? Okay. A big part of Javier's job is communication and establishing rapport with teachers, staff, and custodians and other students. Javier does a great job building rapport with all those he encounters at the school site. He is especially great at building rapport with students. The students love Javier, and he's actually been chosen for VIP Day. They actually chose Javier to be their special person to come visit the classroom. To end, Javier is a joy to work with. He has a contagious and infectious smile and laugh. He is a team player and will do whatever it takes to make the site successful. We are so thrilled to have him as our Classified Employee of the Year. Congratulations, Javier.
Being recorded because my honoree is not here today, but I want to make sure that he captures this moment because he is very special. Good evening. My name is Merly Sony and I'm the principal at Cedar Creek. And I am here to honor Juan Carlos Sanchez, who is our head custodian at Cedar Creek. And he does all of the things. Amazing. But what I really want to spotlight tonight is his character. Yes, he ensures our campus is always on tip-top shape. And I truly just have never met somebody who is as good at everything as Carlos is. We are an edible schoolyard school. He's an amazing cook. So if you come to our site, you can see that we have celery, we have all kinds of goodies. Just yesterday, we had cauliflower that was ready. He took it to the kitchen, just 20 minutes, took it out, and we tasted it. So he helps with culinary arts. He helps with PBIS. He helps you with attendance incentives. When I had a glow, I just have to tell a story. I had a glow party and he made sure that my whole NPR was covered with black butcher paper to ensure that our students had that glow experience. So the next time I said, Carlos, I have another idea. Let's make it into a glow paint party. So then I said, and you can be our guest. You can make a guest appearance. And he said, yeah, I got you. So sure enough, he covers the walls. He sets up tables for the students with paints and he makes a guest appearance and he's a great artist, great cook, great artist, has a green thumb. He's just everything. So we are just so grateful at Cedar Creek to have Carlos not only just do all the head custodian duties, but just do his character, his person, who he is, the passion that he has for our students and our school is just amazing. So congratulations to Carlos, and I hope you like this.
She's in the finance.
Yes, thanks for the numbers.
You are in the business department.
So this is Kim Vesco, and she is the district office classified employee of the year. She also represents the entire district as a classified employee of the year. She also was nominated by the County of Los Angeles to represent all 80 school districts to be submitted to the state for classifying. Very proud of her. I'll try to make this brief because I could go on for many pages, and the first thing I wrote was many, many pages, and just writing about what she did during the pandemic was a book itself. So Kim has worked for the Saugus Union School District for 26 years as a certificated payroll technician. Over the years, Kim has helped shape the payroll department. The payroll software, if any of you have ever worked with software from 30 years ago with menus, it's antiquated. It takes a lot of support and subledgers, but Kim has mastered the ability to quickly and efficiently process payroll for over 400 employees each month with little to no mistakes. Basically no mistakes. But Kim not only pays the payroll, she also manages all the employees' longevity, their leave of absence pay, their insurance payments, administrator calendars, paying administrators' annual calendars. I could go on. In addition, as she's doing all of this, she works congenially with her colleagues in the payroll and human resources department. Kim is very dedicated to her profession and rarely is discouraged by the many, many payroll changes we've had over the last 8 years, such as mass retro pays or new software. Kim possesses an analytical mind that allows her to quickly solve problems. I think it's one of her greatest strengths. The knowledge to research answers and the ability to translate the challenges to non-payroll skilled employees. Kim is able to determine if recommended procedures will work or hinder the system processes, and then she provides solutions to accomplish the goals that we have for payroll. Kim has been an amazing mentor to her newer payroll technicians who have joined the team over the past several years, and I see that a couple of them here are even here tonight to support Kim. 8 years ago, there were little to no standard procedures in place for coordinating medical leaves between payroll and human resources. But Kim worked with downstairs for human resources, and she was very instrumental in helping to develop and streamline the medical leave process. They even created a leave personnel requisition form that Luz uses every day. And Luz has even had other districts reach out to her for our systems that Kim helped create and has shared with other districts. Kim has been instrumental in processing 2 mass retro payrolls after the past 2 years. And except for Kim, she was the only person in the payroll team that had ever processed a mass retro pay. So she worked very closely with her team, guided the other payroll technicians with the process with much patience. All the overtime that she worked, she never complained. She only focused on the end result of paying everybody correctly and paying them on time. Kim has weathered the most recent CalSTRS audit and has made many changes to the payroll data to confirm Saugus is in compliance with the pension regulations. And Kim remembers everything, institutional memory, 26 years back. Kim is always available to assist any employee with questions concerning their paychecks. If Kim is unaware of the answer, she'll do the research. She'll reach out to the appropriate personnel to find the answer. She never lets it go. She will always find the answer. She has an excellent rapport with the teachers and the administration throughout the district. Employees feel comfortable contacting Kim with payroll concerns or issues. Kim is always pleasant and no matter the situation, and is always very helpful. Aside from Kim's dedication to her profession and colleagues, Kim is a kind and caring person who would give the shirt off her back to anyone in need. Kim's coworkers admire her commitment to and love of her family and community. Several days a week, Kim leaves work to babysit her grandchildren, and to date, she has donated 5 gallons of blood to the Red Cross. Kim is loyal and dedicated to the school district. She treats all her colleagues with the utmost respect and considers them all her friends. The entire business office staff appreciates that Kim goes above and beyond to help the office be festive, and periodically even brings in donuts and home baked goods many times. So congratulations, Kim, and thank you for your dedication.
Hello, my name is Amy King. I'm the assistant principal at Emblem Academy, and I'm joined this evening with
Diane Saunders, interim principal at Emblem Academy.
all right, and it's with much enthusiasm that we honor Emblem Academy's Classified Employee of the Year, Miss Monica Rios. Monica Rios is an amazing part of our front office team. She's professional, responsible, and very organized. She can be counted on to take on any task, great or small, with a wonderful attitude. Ms. Rios is also very kind and caring. She has excellent relationships with families and students. She's willing to jump in and help out in the health office. She's willing to partner with families, and she assists students every day. Emblem Academy would not be the same without her positivity, her wonderful smile. We're so thankful to work with Ms. Monica Rios.
Hi, I'm Sandy Bellinger, a head teacher at James Foster. This year, our classified employee of the year is Kathy Fonzo. We are very excited to be celebrating one of the most amazing people on the planet, Miss Kathy Fonzo. She is James Foster Elementary's classified employee of the year, and we love that we are able to celebrate her. Kathy Fonzo goes above and beyond in everything she does to help our students, from organizing special games on the playground to creating a support system to help the students feel more comfortable at school. There is nothing she won't do to make students feel safe and welcome at school. She is the most dedicated campus supervisor who comes to school each day with a smile on her face. Always smiling. Kathy is one of our go-to people on campus. She wears many hats. She is an integral part of our PBIS program, being the check-in, check-out person for students, and assists with our Swiss documentation system. Oftentimes, when students are asked who they feel comfortable speaking to or going to for help, the overwhelming response is Miss Kathy. She spends tons of extra hours volunteering for teachers, helping organize things on campus, and is willing to do any task she is assigned. I cannot say enough wonderful things about Kathy. We truly do not know what we would do without her. She is kind, compassionate, a team player, patient, approachable, and radiates positivity. The impact she has on our campus is enormous, and we are so very grateful for all she has done. She's a blessing to our school and the huge part of any successes we have had this year. Here in Saugus, we pride ourselves on being a family, and Miss Kathy is the glue that holds our family together. We absolutely adore her. Congratulations, Miss Kathy. You make a huge difference in people's lives, and we appreciate more than you will ever know. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Valley-Korodny, the principal of Charles Helmers Elementary, and I have the pleasure of recognizing Mrs. Bree Junker. Mrs. Junker is a kind and caring paraeducator who works with all grade levels throughout the day. She easily transitions from kindergarten to 6th grade, which is no small task, and specializes in connections with students of all ages and personalities. Mrs. Junker is a valuable member of our positive behavioral interventions and supports team, and she leads our staff in her positivity. She reaches out to help students who might be struggling with behavior, and she looks for ways to help students succeed. Mrs. Junker is always willing to go the extra mile to assist any staff member or student who is in need. She works on both of our campuses with a happy heart, and she adapts to meet the needs of both campuses. Mrs. Junker excels at making learning fun. She supports students learning across the grade levels, and she often provides additional suggestions and ideas to the lesson plans. Mrs. Junker is a wonderful team member, and the Helmers Huskies are proud to have her represent us as the Classified Employee of the Year. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Bender, principal at Highlands, and this is the amazing Mrs. Susan, but we call her Susie Silky. Our Highlands staff isn't just pleased to recognize Mrs. Susie Silky as our Classified Employee of the Year. We are ecstatic, overjoyed, and thrilled that Susie works at Highlands. We get to see her and work alongside her every single day of the year, well, school year. And so do the students in Miss Corcoran's special day class. And I do mean every single day, because Susie is never absent. And even on the one day that she was absent, she texted me at least 3 times to check on the students and remind me of their certain needs. Efficient, check. Takes initiative, check. Completes tasks in a timely manner, check. But what our classified evaluation doesn't include are the following. Find storybooks that the students relate to, always. Creates fun activities so that all of the students are able to participate, totally. Looks for different ways to engage the students, you got it. Loves the kids, no matter who, no matter what, without a doubt. You see, Susie has a deep desire for every single student to be successful. Don't cry. I believe that this started for Susie with her own son, Damien, and her desire to see him reach his greatest potential. Susie started at Highlands as a parent, with her son as a member of the same special day class that she now works in. With determination, Damien has become a very high achieving student. I just found out he has a 3.8, is that correct? Now in his first year at Academy of the Canyons. I know, let's give him a round of applause. Hey, Damien, to embarrass you a little. So Susie, without hesitation, our staff is so very proud of you and the commitment to excellence and fun that you bring with you each day to our little school on the hill. Congratulations.
Good evening. My name is Peter Gayton. I'm the Director of Maintenance, Operations, Transportation, and Facilities. I just want to congratulate all of the honorees tonight. Our schools wouldn't be what they are without you guys. So thank you guys all. Our classified employee of the year for maintenance and operations is John Malarkey. John began his career here in Saugus as a sub gardener 6 years ago. He was hired in our department in 2019. John has been happily married to his wife, Michelle, since 1999. They have 2 children, Jack and Katie. John and Michelle both work here at the district. Their children attended Plum Canyon Elementary. Katie will be graduating from Oregon State University this summer, and Jack is in his first year at COC. John has many strengths, but I will highlight a few: dependable, hardworking, and visionary. Repairing, installing, maintaining, and making general repairs to our irrigation system, CalSense, the smart watering system, are just some of his responsibilities. One of John's first projects was to make sure that all of our mainline breaks would be reported electronically and the system would shut the water main off to prevent water loss. Just like he does, he knocked it out of the park. At a time where conserving water reserves is so important, our district is a leader in water conservation. Today, the district has reduced water consumption, saved thousands of dollars, and gone are all of the calls from our community members reporting water flowing down the street. John responds to all mainline breaks in an efficient manner. The repairs require turning off the irrigation and hoping that the first hole he digs is where the break is located. I've stopped by and found a 3-foot hole, a 4-foot hole, a 5-foot hole. Just like the movie Holes, I've arrived there and there's been multiple holes. Once the break is located, the hole has to be dug in a manner to have enough room for him to complete the repair. So this means more digging. The hole is in sometimes 3 by 3 or 4 by 4, just massive. I can always count on John to have a positive can-do attitude. He always finds it funny when I say, "Have we dug to the center of the earth yet?" And he responds with a "we." I am most appreciative of the care that he takes to make sure our students have a safe and clean space to play during the recess and lunch. A couple of months ago, John received a work order to paint a soccer field at Highlands Upper Field. This was during the FIFA World Cup soccer. So John looked into the measurements, researched it, and he did a great job with staff's assistance. Nothing he does is mediocre. You can always count on him to exceed your expectations. The best part of seeing the joyous expressions on all of our kiddos' faces when they saw the field completed. I know they were dreaming about playing in the World Cup. Who knows? Maybe one day, one of them might just be a professional team. With John's follow through, the district has implemented an irrigation and aerating schedule for our fields, making sure our grass fields have a program to maintain them in good condition year round. We had all of the staff properly trained to meet state compliance and make sure our fields are safe for all to use. John has done a great job maintaining the irrigation controllers and programmed all of the stations. We can remotely turn off school site irrigation, test irrigation stations individually. We have a plan, and it's because of John. When I asked for help with a native garden idea for one of our sites, some of our ideas were native garden, butterfly garden, tequila garden. John researched the planning material and set up meetings with native planting nurseries so that we could get expert advice. He then followed up with finding a local nursery where we could get the materials at the best price possible. The vision was to provide a California native garden plant. This garden would attract a diversity of bird, butterfly, and other pollinator life. There's really no beautiful theme like nature itself. We're excited to have completed the garden last week. Soon we will install a learning board near the garden so that our students can appreciate and learn for years to come of what truly is native here in Santa Clarita. This year, we had an unusual amount of rain. What was John doing during the heavy rains? I'll tell you what, he was building owl boxes for our campuses. So we found out that we can get a rebate through Santa Clarita Water Company for installing owl boxes on our campuses. The owls are our natural pest control for our sites. There's nothing as beautiful as nature. I can't wait to see what else John has in store for our district. As I said, when John is involved, he always exceeds expectations. We're blessed to have such a dedicated, hardworking employee that embodies our district's core values, respect, and integrity, learning, teamwork, and enthusiasm.
Hey, John, is it the right size?
Well, John was the one who saw water coming down from Mountain View and didn't ignore it, came up, turned off all the irrigation. It turned out it was actually the site water under the building. So he saved a lot of damage and they had to come back twice, but not you. You do it the first time. So thank you. All right. Good evening, Governing Board, Cabinet, and guests. I'm Katie Dempster, and this is Mr. Dave Stepner. It's our honor to recognize Mrs. Ronalyn Cohen, or Rona as we know her, as the Mountain View Classified Employee of the Year. Unfortunately, Rona couldn't be with us this evening, but for a very good reason, because she is very much happily celebrating her son's graduation this evening. So we congratulate her and her son. Rona has been a special education paraeducator at Mountain View in our moderate to severe special day class for almost as many years as I've been at Mountain View. She has a huge heart for students with special abilities and special needs. She works well with not only students at all grade levels and all abilities, but she's also flexible to move into any classroom in need. She communicates easily with the paraeducator colleagues and takes direction when needed from the teacher of the class. She is someone who jumps in when she sees a need instead of waiting to be asked. However, she's very careful not to interfere when there are enough hands on deck. Rona has added another level of support to Mountain View by becoming a guest teacher as well. This allows her to step in as the teacher when a vacancy goes unfilled in our special day class program to help ensure consistency for our students. This has also enabled her to be trained to be a second scorer for our California Adaptive Assessments, or CAW, this year for our 3rd through 6th grade students in our special day classes. This has really helped keep our students more comfortable because they know Rona so well. She attends site level and district level training whenever they are offered so that she can continue to grow and help the students in her care. She comes to work every day with a smile on her face and love in her heart for all students at Mountain View, and we are blessed to have her as a part of our Mountain View family. Congratulations, Rona.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Diane D'Elia. I'm the principal at North Park. And North Park is thrilled to recognize Marcella Chang as our 2023 Classified Employee of the Year. She began at North Park many years ago as a campus supervisor, and then she left for a brief time to work in another unnamed school district in the Santa Clarita Valley. She returned to North Park in 2021 as an office assistant and has been instrumental in keeping the office running smoothly. Quite the team player, she jumps in wherever she's needed and juggles many tasks at once. She tends to be soft-spoken at work, but laughs a lot and has a wonderful smile. She doesn't miss a beat in a crisis, stays calm, and is kind to all. And when she bakes for Goodie Day, people stock up on her chocolate chip cookies. I really should say they hoard the cookies. So you have to get there early if you want to get one or two. She's a wonderful person and a great employee. Congratulations to Marcella on the recognition. It's well deserved, and please keep baking.
Good evening. My name is Ardrella Hamilton, and we have Mrs. Dina Tikas, our assistant principal, and we are here to honor Mrs. Gina Torp. I affectionately call her Miss Gina. So Miss Gina, years of experience have equipped her to taking charge and have this unique quality of confidence about herself. She is diligent in completing her daily tasks, which includes calling our families, checking on our attendance, managing independent study contracts, assisting parents when checking into our volunteer system, and greeting all of our guests that come to Plum Canyon every day. Ms. Torp manages all of these things with a smile and grace on her face. We're happy to have her. She partners with all of our teachers, making sure that attendance is in place. And she partners with us to make sure that we contact our parents to make sure that our students are on campus because they need to be. She also helps us and supports us in making sure that our parents are contacted, but making sure our students are on campus so that they are learning at high levels. We appreciate that about her. Ms. Gina was selected by teachers and staff because of her willingness to lend a hand whenever someone or anyone is in need. We are so very happy and pleased to have Ms. Gina as Plum Canyon's Employee of the Year.
Good evening. I'm Cheryl Cameron, principal of Rio Vista, and I'd like to introduce Mrs. Stacy Hernandez, Rio Vista's Classified Employee of the Year. So Mrs. Hernandez is a much loved and outstanding special education paraeducator. She helps our students to learn life, behavior, and academic skills. She works with any student who needs her whenever she is asked, whether it is her typical assignment or a general education student in crisis. She can get through to any child with that just right combination of firmness and kindness. Mrs. Hernandez is a key part of our school community, serving on our PBIS team alongside other certificated and classified staff and parents. In her PBIS work, she shares her expertise in behavior and special education and her wish to see all kids loved and successful. Her job duties require her to relate well to the community while maintaining privacy and maturity of judgment, and she skillfully strikes that balance. Mrs. Hernandez knows the extracurricular activities such as academic Saturday school, summer school, and after-school activities are important to our children, and she is always willing to work to ensure our students are fully included. She is revered and loved at Rio Vista, and we are very honored to have her represent us as our Classified Employee of the Year.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Bellina, and I'm the principal at Rosedale Elementary School, and it is my honor and privilege to announce Mr. Adon Flores as our Classified Employee of the Year. Mr. Flores is the nighttime custodian at Rosedale's main campus. However, our head custodian has been out on leave for several months, and Mr. Flores has seamlessly stepped into being our guest head custodian without missing a beat. All throughout the day, you can hear Mr. Flores being called in many different directions over the walkie-talkie, especially during recess and lunch. One might feel frustrated with the sheer volume and steady stream of requests that seem to happen all at the same time. Daily, you can hear things like, Adon, clean up in the primary bathroom. Adon, student has an accident and we need to clean up in the K yard. Adon, accident in the bathroom in the health office. Adon, we need your help at the lunch tables. And the requests go on and on. Mr. Flores always responds quickly and positively with, I'll be right there. I'm on my way. No problem. And there's never a sense of frustration. Mr. Flores is calm and kind and takes great pride in his work. He thinks ahead and makes sure that he's on top of all of our events and activities at Rosedale. He's respectful and highly respected and revered by students, staff, and family. We are greatly appreciative of Mr. Flores' dedication and commitment to keeping Rosedale in tip-top shape so students and staff look forward to coming to work and school each day. Thank you so much, Mr. Flores.
Good evening. My name is Rose Villanueva, principal of Santa Clarita Elementary School, and it is truly an honor to recognize our 2022 Classified Employee of the Year, Mr. Noel Villanueva. And no, we're not related. Okay, just want to clear that up. Mr. Villanueva is our office manager and an outstanding office manager at that. He's also our CSEA site representative. If you have ever read the book, Have You Filled a Bucket Today by Carol McLeod, you understand just how powerful filling someone's bucket can be. Mr. Villanueva is one of those individuals that fills everyone's bucket without even knowing that he's doing that. Tonight, the staff at Santa Clarita Elementary School is honored to fill Noel's bucket. It's all pink. Here is what we have to say about our amazing office manager, Noel Villanueva. Noel is always willing to help. He always takes the time to ask how I'm doing and puts that extra effort, there you go, fill in your bucket, extra effort to make sure I have everything I need for my classroom and my students. He always has buckets of smiles, and he is truly a pleasure to work with. Noel is a fabulous coworker who can fix anything. Mr. Fix-It. He puts his heart and soul into serving our school community. He really helps to ensure that our school is not only a good school, but a great school, and that it is a warm and welcoming environment for all. Noel is so busy in the office, but he always takes the time to ask us how we're doing. He cares about everyone he works with. Noel always has a positive attitude, and he always brightens our day. He's a true sweetheart. Noel is the first person I see when I get onto campus in the morning, and he never fails to say good morning and ask me how I'm doing. And he actually listens to what I have to say. He is always in a jolly mood, and I really appreciate his kindness. There's Jolly Ranchers. He greets everyone who enters in the office, and he is warm in a warm and caring manner. He has a friendly voice when he's doing all calls and talking on the walkie-talkie. He might look really tough, but he's really a teddy bear. These are his favorite. Noel makes me feel welcome as a long-term guest sub at Santa Clarita Elementary School. He makes me feel part of the team, which validates my hard work and dedication to our students. Your Bulldog family is so grateful for you, and we appreciate all that you do each and every day. Noelle, you are absolutely the best. Here's the best bike. And we thank you for always filling our buckets. And so it's truly our pleasure to fill yours.
All right, good evening. I'm Misty Covington, the principal of Sky Blue Mesa, and I'd like to say a few words about our classified employee of the year, Mrs. Susan Floyd. Susan is one of those rare individuals who has the patience, kindness, and ability to work with students at any grade level, and she helps them all find success at school. Whether it be helping students in a kindergarten class count blocks, working with a second grader on blending words to read, or motivating a third grader to complete work. She has that magic touch. Plus, she is always willing to pitch in and help where needed. Tonight, she is being the amazing mom that she is and celebrating her daughter's graduation from Canyon High School. That's right. And we not only want her to know, but you to know too, just how much she is loved and valued at Sky Blue Mesa Elementary School.
Don't worry, I don't have a bucket. I have a basket, okay? But, hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Ernestina Aguilar, principal at Tesoro, and it is my pleasure of introducing to you the one and only awesome employee of the year for Tesoro, our head custodian, George Cardenas. And I just want to acknowledge that it's really hard for people just to come to these events for our classified. I had to convince him, and maybe I bribed him, but he did come, and I just feel like it's so important to have them here when they can come. But just want to thank you for being here present, because I know it's not the most comfortable space to stand, but we really appreciate you. So Mr. Cardenas, he takes pride in everything he does. He's just truly an inspiring man beyond his role as a custodian. On any given day, you will see him helping delivery trucks, hauling heaps of trash bags at the end of each lunch period, setting up for the next assembly, and or power hosing the high traffic areas. He ensures that every area is immaculate and finishes off with great attention to detail. His dedication to our school is beyond measure, as he ensures the well-being of all our staff and students at Tesoro. Mr. Cardenas is genuinely kind, humble, and one of the hardest workers you will ever get to know. He is the first person at our school every morning and sets everything from signage to opening bathroom doors and setting up for any given event. He is reliable, and we just can't thank him enough for his unconditional support and strong work ethic. And I just want to share just a very short way of how I met Mr. Cardenas. I was new 3 years ago to the district, and anytime you come to a new place or school, they say you have to meet the custodian and the office manager. So I've noticed that that's a lot of people who've been recognized. So the first informal meeting that we had, they're like, okay, let's see who this new person is at our school, right? So they've already done their research on who the new principal was, but he didn't know that I was also doing my research on them. So two things that I like you to remember when you see Mr. Cardenas is that number one, the respect that underlies his person. It's just immaculate. So you can feel that in the school. And number two, he has this ability to foretell the future. So anytime I'm like, oh, we need a meeting to set up, he's like, I got it. Tables are done. What else do you need? Here's the microphone. Do you need a flat panel? I'm like, yes. And so he's on it, and it just makes our world as educators so much smoother. And so I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, say thank you. And I do have a basket, but my whole intention for my basket is to have some joy and get you through those hard times in school at the end of the year. So.
Hi, I'm Sue Bed. I'm the principal at West Creek Academy.
And I'm Amanda Howard, the assistant principal.
We are absolutely thrilled to be able to honor Derek Wilde, who is our extraordinary, phenomenal, amazing campus supervisor and our classified employee of the year for West Creek.
So each morning, Mr. Wilde greets and welcomes our students with a giant smile and their families as well. And this is happening at our front gates as the students are entering, whether it's raining or shining, usually in shorts and a t-shirt. So it's nice to see him dressed up a little bit today. Not only does he have a friendly demeanor, but he also creates a positive connection with our students throughout the school day while keeping student safety at the forefront. He always puts forth excellence in supervising, supporting, and helping our students. Mr. Wilde keeps safety at the forefront while helping students enjoy the many wonderful components of recess and lunch. He has been trained in and utilizes Playworks, as well as organizes other games and sports for our students to play on the playground.
Mr. Wilde is a member of our PBIS team, serving both in the lens of a campus supervisor as well as a parent. He has 4 children at West Creek, as well as 1 West Creek alum who's at Rio Norte. Mr. Wilde works with the team to build and ensure the school expectations of being safe, respectful, and responsible. Mr. Wilde also participates as one of our staff members who students check in with their goals with our PBIS check-in and check-out system. Through this program, he's helped guide and motivate students. Whenever Mr. Wilde is checking in on students or helping out, I know they have the very best care and that the students will be well taken care of. And we've seen such growth and progress with every student that he works with. Mr. Wilde truly cares about each student and staff member and is well respected by everyone. He epitomizes the district's "Together We Achieve More." And beyond all that he does as a campus supervisor, we know during the pandemic, you had many, many different roles. And one image I always think of with Mr. Wilde is when we had those distribution days, and it was really warm some of those days and went for quite some time, but he was like a superhero with how fast he would make sure everything was distributed to all of the families there. And we just appreciate everything about Mr. Wilde. He really has been incredible. I wish we could clone him for all the campus supervisor openings that we have so that we could fill the positions, because he does such an amazing job. And congratulations, Mr. Wilde.
I'm already down here, so I'm just going to stay down here instead of walking back up there. We have one more award to give out. We used to be able to keep this award a secret until we had this evening, but then the California Department of Education decided to change their timeline for selecting classified employees of the year. So it used to be really, really exciting, but we already know who our amazing classified employee of the year is for the entire district. I work very closely with Kim, especially around negotiations time when I make her crazy with all of the crazy agreements that we come up with, and then she's got to figure out how to pay them. So I appreciate you, Kim. I've always enjoyed working with you and problem solving with you. And you really helped me out a lot in this position as I first came in too, because I couldn't have done it without your help. So thank you very much. So Kim, if you could, yes. If you could come on up to the very front. You won't be alone for very long, I promise. We do have an award for you. And here you are, our classified employee of the year. All right, if we could have all of our honorees come stand up here with Kim, and then we'll have the board congratulate you with some flowers. She's great. She's well. I think we're standing back here. Yep. Oh, we're gonna have to move her.
In her spot.
Oh. Cool. Okay. Thank you. At this time, the board would just like to offer our own words. Mrs. Grace.
Just a quick congratulations to everyone tonight. You know, that saying it takes a village. It definitely takes a village to make a team work and to make a school site work. So appreciate everyone's hard work. Congratulations. It sounds like your team is just very respectful and you guys have a great team going on. So I think it's always nice to hear that. Just a really great environment. So thanks.
Ms. Love.
Wow. Thank you all for everything that you do. At the beginning, when the first award was handed out from Bridgeport, I started writing down all of the things that all of the principals and administrators said that you all handle regularly. And I frankly cannot even read this list. It is so much. And I think someone summarized it best toward the beginning. You do everything. You guys do everything. Thank you so much for making our schools a wonderful place for our students, but also a wonderful place for our staff, being such good team players, willing to help out everywhere. I heard kind and respectful over and over and over again, and just, it really makes our schools such a bright light, and you don't get thanked enough. We don't thank you enough. And I hope you know how much we truly appreciate you, and you can feel it tonight, because it's hard work, and we wouldn't be able to be what we are without you all. So thank you so much. And if one more of you makes me almost cry tonight, I'm Miss Susie Silky, I can't take it.
Thank you. Mr. Hunt?
Our school district could not operate, or we could not educate our kids without our classified employees. Congratulations to all of you that were recognized tonight by not only us, but most importantly by your colleagues. Thank you for all of the tremendous work that you do on behalf of the school district, for our kids, for your colleagues. And lastly, Kim, best of luck to you. We hope to recognize you again very soon.
Thank you, Mr. Watson.
Just want to echo what my colleagues have said prior to me. Thank you all so much for your hard work and dedication. You truly are the soul of our school community, and you are what makes each one of our school locations and offices so special, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
So ditto, 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 ditto. And you are the icing on the educational cake. And whether you realize it or not, you make a huge difference in the lives of our kids. Sometimes it might be in a little way, might be in a big way, but it's definitely in a lasting way. And so thank you all for coming out tonight, and thank you for everything that you do. At this time, we're going to take a break, let you take pictures, visit, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Okay, it is 7:41. We will proceed. Okay, so now we're on to public comment. Advance written requests to address the board regarding agenda and non-agenda items, board bylaws 9320, 9322, and 9323. Each speak to the process used by the governing board to allow for public comment during its meetings that is in compliance with the Brown Act and other applicable law. Board bylaw 9323 specifically outlines the process for members of the public to address the governing board on agenda and non-agenda items that are within its subject matter jurisdiction. Members of the public wishing to address the governing board are asked to do the following prior to the start of the public comment section of the meeting. Old.
Mine's working.
Want me to speak over your shoulder?
If you want to.
Can you hear me yet? Oh, there, it's back. Okay, thank you. At some point, I was gonna make everybody start humming The Girl from Ipanema. Okay, and where was I? Okay, this notification is requested to allow the board president to consistently implement public comment guidelines provided in board bylaw 9323. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes per topic for public comment. The total time allotted for each topic is 20 minutes. Depending on the number of persons wishing to be heard on a single topic may require the governing board to adjust the times allotted for each speaker or the total time. That's not an issue tonight. In order to ensure that non-English speakers receive the same opportunity to directly address the board, any member of the public who utilizes a translator shall be provided at least twice the allotted time. Members of the public wishing to make public comment via telephone or virtual meeting software must notify the assistant to the superintendent via email not later than 4:30 p.m. on the day of the scheduled meeting to ensure that the person has the same opportunity to address the board under board bylaw 9323 as those who are in attendance. Members of the public may also submit written comments to be included in the meeting minutes and distributed to the governing board members prior to the meeting by sending an email to the assistant to the superintendent by 4:30 p.m. on the day of the scheduled meeting. Please remember that state law prevents the board from acting on any matter not listed on the agenda or from discussing any such matter in detail. Thank you. Okay, so we don't have any issues with time. All right, so we're going to start with, I'm going to ask the first three people to line up. So Jana, Tasha, Corey. Jana, Tasha, Corey has two items. The first is regarding emblem. The second is reading a letter from a parent who couldn't be here. And then Desiree Teslar. Okay. Whenever you're ready, Mrs. Dahl.
Good evening. I want to start by thanking Trustee Grease for her support to the emblem parents in this sensitive time to acknowledge the missing information in the minutes from all of the parents that spoke at the last meeting. Since everything was pretty much left out, I'm going to read mine again. Good evening, Saugus School Board members. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Jana. I am the proud mom of two amazing kids that attend Emblem Academy. My daughter Emma is in the 4th grade. My son Mason is in the 1st grade. My son has autism and requires the support of a one-on-one aide. I had to hire an attorney because the IEP would not implement the proper aide support my son needed. The district finally assigned an aide, and the special education director made assurances that my son's aide will remain while additional assessments were being conducted. This was a problem because Moshayetti had her own agenda and removed my son's aide and assigned her to somebody else. After many phone calls with my attorney and the district, they assured me the aide would remain. Moshayetti wasn't done interfering with my son's aide. She wanted to make sure that I got less information on his daily logs. Mind you, these were the daily logs agreed upon in the IEP. Then it took more phone calls and emails with the special education director just to keep the forms the way they were. Fast forward to the attendance meeting that I emailed her, CCing the special education director and my attorney to let her know I wouldn't be attending. Instead of her responding to the email so that it's not in writing, she calls me threatening to take my son's aide away for chronic absences, which he doesn't have. Not only was that illegal, she has no say in my son's aide and what happens with her. This was not an easy decision to get up here and speak tonight for fear of retaliation against my kids. But I feel if I don't take this stand, nothing will change. My request is the immediate transfer of Dr. Moshayetti. The students, teachers, and parents deserve better. I'll leave you with the closing that was taught to my children by their incredible kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Williams. And I quote, "Thank you for listening to my speech. You have been a polite audience."
Okay. You can stay and do your second one.
For the
Yeah.
next one.
Yeah. Mrs. Dahl, can you reset the?
I'm reading this on behalf of a parent who was here last week but couldn't be here this week. To whom it may concern, I am writing today not as the voice of one parent, but as the voice of the community of parents, teachers, and staff at Emblem Academy. For the past 2 years, Dr. Sahar Moshayetti has been the principal at our school. She has turned it upside down. She has taken a gold medal blue ribbon STEM school filled with love, laughter, and a second home to many children, parents, and volunteers, and turned it into a place where the air feels thick. The warm, welcoming feeling has turned ice cold, and a feeling of being is now on edge. We've lost amazing teachers and staff due to her lack of support and holier than thou mentality. We know that at Emblem, we have some of the finest teachers there, and they're in the district and truly trying their best, but it's really hard when you're not in a supportive environment. With the changes that she has put in place for next year, there is no doubt we will be losing some great teachers that have found their niche. The wonderful teachers have been pushed beyond their limit and are now the only good thing left at that school. Parents have shared that Dr. Moshayetti has targeted a child if she has a problem with the parents. She hands out dress code violations, yet promotes a negative body image for girls and boys by wearing revealing clothing. She talks down to staff as if they are worthless. She doesn't try to connect with any of the students, is not friendly at all with the parents, and makes a very toxic work environment. She tries to change things in the RAP program that already works like a well-oiled machine due to the great staff they have. Many of the volunteers who were regulars at the school have become ghosts among the hallways. Emblem used to be one of our favorite places to be, and now it's somewhere we try to avoid. Many of us have been Emblem Academy families for over 10 years now since it reopened. Mr. Baker and the staff made Emblem feel very welcoming to all who entered. But this past 2 years since she has been principal, many of us have seriously considered homeschooling or transferring our children to a different school. It's heartbreaking to watch our school fail because of one person. Please don't let this happen. We truly feel that she is not cut out to be our principal. A principal should love their school. A principal should love the kids that fill the seats in the classrooms. A principal should support their teachers wholeheartedly, especially teachers as wonderful as ours. A principal should have school spirit. A principal should show dedication to their school family. A principal should be a pillar in the community and represent the student body as an educator and an advocate for their students' education. Instead, she tears down those pillars that are holding the community and school up together. She shows none of this, and it is truly showing in how the school is turning out. We hope you've opened your hearts and heard our plea to transfer her from our school. If we need to get a petition signed by the community, please let us know and we will get that done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Tesler.
Good evening. I didn't get to finish my speech last time and I feel like that it needs to be heard, so I'm going to reread it. My name is Desiree Teslar, and my daughter Abrielle has attended Emblem Academy since kindergarten and is now in 4th grade. She is in the regional autism program. She was diagnosed with autism and epilepsy. We love our school and our staff. We have never had a problem there. When Sahar Moishietti got hired to be our principal in 2021, that all changed. She started by talking down to me and even yelling at me 3 times about my RAP pass not being visible, my truck in the RAP drop-off, not being close enough to another parent's bumper, and my daughter's absences due to her doctor's appointments at Children's Hospital. Sorry, I lost my place. She claimed that doctor's notes do not matter and absence is an absence. She also said that I needed to bring Abrielle into school sick so that the nurse can see that she is ill, then Emblem can release her to me. I did that one time when she was very sick and brought her in her nightgown even before I took her to urgent care. Sahar told Kristen Cruz, who is amazing, by the way, that she didn't understand why I was bringing my daughter in. The principal says a lot of things to parents and staff that she claims she did not say. My daughter goes to Children's Hospital for neurology, dental, ophthalmology due to her autism. It is the best care for her. Due to Abrielle's autism, she also has an extreme amount of energy and sometimes has trouble sleeping. On March 16th of 2022, I had a SART Zoom meeting with Sahar when she asked me if medicating my daughter to go to sleep was an option. Right away, I told her that was not an option. She claimed some parents take their children to doctors and get them on medication, and that helps. I again told her I am not medicating my child. That is not an option. Later that week, I went to the office to sign paperwork for that meeting. It did not include Sahar's inquiry about medicating my child. I insisted it be put in there before signing. She got upset and told me to come in her office very sternly. I assumed it was so she could be alone with me and yell at me like she has 3 times in the past. She proceeded to raise her voice at me again, like I suspected, with her hands on her hips, standing there, and told me she isn't putting that comment in there because it didn't happen. And she didn't care if I signed it or not. I was sick of her continued harassment and talking down to me. I was at my breaking point with the disrespect. I called her a bad name, which I have never done to an education professional in my life, and told her she cannot harass me or my child anymore. I put in a comment in the paperwork that she asked about medicating my daughter, then signed it. She then put a comment in that my comment was not true and signed it herself. I contacted Colleen Hawkins at the district through email and was informed by her that I was the only parent with this problem. I then replied that I knew that wasn't true and she can handle it the way she wants. I also told her I did not want Sahar at any IEP meetings. And if I need to speak with someone about anything regarding school, I can speak with the amazing assistant principal, Jamie Rudder. I now have the amazing Amy King in our IEPs and to communicate with. They both really care about the children, parents, and staff. I also informed my daughter's teacher last year that Sahar is never to be alone with my child. The
Thank you.
vibe she gives off
Thank you.
is
Your time has expired.
that of someone who would retaliate against me with my child. I also
Ma'am,
informed
time has
Gabrielle's
expired.
teacher that this year of the same thing. I am now hearing other stories from parents that she has pulled their children out of class, harassed them, and sent them home crying. Since Colleen Hawkins said last year she would handle it, I've patiently waited for 2 years. I knew that Sahar's toxic behavior would not stop with the children, parents, and staff. Now the time has come where she has done too much. I know of many staff members as well as other parents that she has threatened, yelled at, or even retaliated against with their children. Her toxic behavior must be put to an end. We love Emblem Academy and we want.
Ma'am,
our
your
students-
time has
Thank you
expired.
for
Thank you.
listening.
Okay,
I
our
heard
next
you.
speakers will be Shannon Kemp, followed by Karen Mars, who apparently has sent information to be shared by Shannon Kemp. And Mr. Matt Funicello will be after Shannon.
As a parent of children attending Emblem Academy, I'm pleased that an investigation is being conducted to examine the leadership and behavior of Principal Sahar Moshayetti, and that this investigation is being performed by an outside entity. I am, however, concerned that 2 weeks have elapsed since the announcement of the investigation, but the investigators did not initiate contact with any of the concerned parties until last night. Hopefully, the investigation will now proceed with speed, fairness, and thoroughness. And with regard to thoroughness, no investigation can be complete without also examining the following concerns. Did Sahar Moshayetti leave her previous job as assistant principal in Compton under a cloud? In short, is there truth to the story that she was given the choice to resign or be fired from that position? And if it is true, was this fact revealed in the course of her being vetted for her job as principal at Emblem Academy? If it was revealed, then why was this fact dismissed? Another question, how many other candidates were considered for the position of principal at Emblem Academy? What were the salient qualifications Moshayetti possessed that other applicants didn't? What exactly made her a candidate for principal when she had only 2 years of experience as a vice principal in her work history? It is important for the investigation to address the nature of the relationship between Moshayetti and Superintendent Hawkins. Were they in fact friends going back to grad school at USC? Was this friendship a factor in Moshayetti's hiring process? Real or imagined, establishing the nature of the relationship between Moshayetti and Superintendent Hawkins is important because the perception among teachers and parents is that they are in fact close. Close enough to make some teachers fear to come forward out of concern they will face reprisal from Superintendent Hawkins. Saying that there are systems in place to prevent illegal reprisal is not particularly reassuring. After all, reprisal can always be performed under the guise of a poor performance evaluation or being passed over for a promotion. There are a lot of ways to exact retribution that will fly right under the legal radar meant to protect whistleblowers. Let me be clear, I am not saying that Superintendent Hawkins has any intention of acting in an inappropriate way toward those coming forward to share their experiences. There is absolutely no indication that is happening. I'm merely relaying the fact that there is a perception of a personal relationship between Moshayetti and the superintendent that is suppressing some voices from being heard. Ignoring this fact could result in an incomplete understanding of the situation at Emblem Academy. In closing, parents are pleased that an outside entity is conducting the investigation, but we will continue to monitor the progress of this investigation and expect it to be thorough and timely. Thank you.
And you will read something for Karen Mars.
Give me 1 moment to pull it up. I'm sorry. This is from Karen Mars. grandmother of 2 Emblem students, school volunteer. I wanted to thank the board for its immediate action in support of the students and teachers at Emblem Academy. While the action to put Sahar on leave was immediate, the investigation has not been so swift. Why? In the last 2 weeks, no teachers have been interviewed, nor have any parents. I would like to also ask the investigation to include the inaction of the superintendent on previous complaints. I personally know of several serious complaints that were ignored, and in one case, the complainant was told, quote, they were on a witch hunt by a member of this board. Had the superintendent taken Emblem's parents' concerns seriously and investigated them at the time, we would not have a community in uproar. I met a parent in front of Emblem who told me that his daughter loved going to school before Sahar, and now she cries and has to be convinced it's okay to attend. On the morning before her suspension, a first grader in Ms. Holland's class told my second grader to stay away from Dr. Moschetti. She was being mean to girls today. Had Colleen taken action, how many children would have been saved this fear of school? While it's nice to see Colleen at open house and the Emblem dance, it feels like she's there to cover her past inaction. I close with the definition of what makes a good superintendent. Someone who understands the needs of the specific community as a whole and shows respect and value for each district employee. A strong vision for the district and the leadership skills to guide and facilitate an administrative staff to carry this vision out in the teachers and community. Yeah, that is all she wrote.
Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Can I ask a question? Have we not given an update to the community on what?
I don't think that that's appropriate since it's a personnel issue. But it is being handled by an outside agency, so we have.
Okay, so
we
then I'll
have
ask,
no
I'll
control
ask
over that.
privately so that I get the answer.
Mr. Funicello.
Good evening. First and foremost, Superintendent Hawkins, if you ever see me outside of this building, please just call me Matt. Mr. Funicello sounds way too formal. I'm not that kind of guy. But first and foremost, I'd like to thank everybody on the board, the school staff, superintendent. I can tell you after speaking with several teachers and even more parents, the attitude and the environment at Emblem Academy is night and day different. It's almost as if you've let people come out of their rooms after being grounded for years. The environment there is happy. Everybody's happy to go back to work, go to school. But I'd like to just reiterate a lot of the things that the parents have said and some of the teachers have said. This has been a long time coming. It's disappointing that it took this long for it to happen, but yet again, I want to say thank you for listening, but more importantly, thank you for hearing the words that are coming out of these men and women's mouths. Unlike some of the parents and teachers here, I'm a nobody, so I really don't care if I make an idiot out of myself when I talk publicly. But others, that's not the case. Others come up here and they're literally shaking because they're so scared of what may come. What some of these men and women have done to come up here, whether they're parents or teachers, is beyond amazing. I look at these people here tonight and these people here last month, and I am honestly shocked and amazed. I've seen acts of courage on the battlefield. I have seen some really bad things, but I've seen some really good things come out of bad things. What these men and women have done is some of the most brave, some of the most courageous things that I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot. But that being said, I'd like to thank all the parents, all the teachers that spoke up. Without you, none of this would have happened. You are the real heroes in all of this, and you should be absolutely commended for what you did. But again, thank you for taking the brave step to listen to us and to hear us and to take that step. I know investigations take a long time. I used to be a cop. I get that. I understand that. But this is a very great first step, and you should all be commended. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker cards include Mr. Kemp regarding the minutes, and then after Mr. Kemp will be Rebecca Heineman on item 3F2, followed by Rebecca Heineman on board procedure.
I'm back. I just reviewed the minutes from the last meeting, and I'm appalled by the lack of care that was taken in recording what was said. The minutes are incomplete, they're inaccurate. Just for instance, I'm listed as Ms. Shannon Kemp. I don't know what kind of vibe I'm putting off, but it's not the kind of mistake that I'll lose sleep over, but I do think it's emblematic of the care that was taken in preparing these minutes. Matthew Watson, you are the trustee for the area that includes Emblem Academy, and that you would consider these minutes to be complete beggars belief. If you think these minutes are complete and accurate, and they represent what was said last week by, what was it, 14 different voices, if you think that's the case, then you weren't listening. It's just that simple. As our trustee, we expected more from you. But don't worry, you and Cassandra Love and Chris Turnkey and Catherine Cooper, you're all going to get a chance to keep hearing from the parents, because we're not going to stop. We're going to keep talking. And we will be heard over and over again. We'll keep coming back and sharing our concerns until we're satisfied that we are heard. I hope that's clear. And I hope these notes, these minutes are going to be just as thorough as they were for the other speakers that night. We got short shrift. Just look at the minutes again. Look at the detail that goes into the minutes for the people that spoke after us. We got one paragraph to summarize 14 voices. It is ridiculous. Frankly, it's shameful. And that it would just blithely say, yeah, these notes were great. These minutes are terrific. How any of you thought that is beyond me. I think you need to examine your conscience. That's all.
Ms. Heineman.
Good evening, board. My name is Rebecca Hindman, and I live in the district. I am a proud Saugus parent. As a school board, it is a we, not an I. The governance handbook and the board policies and the state regulations clearly state that as well. Once again, I stand here because we have a board member that is striking out on their own. Ms. Grease held a public meeting at a Starbucks, risking violating the Brown Act. If any of the other 4 board members had happened to wander in at the same time, that would be a Brown violation. To go over the complaint procedures that are clearly outlined on the SUSD board page. Is this knowledge helpful? Yes. Does holding a public meeting as an individual but representing the board go against policy? Yes. Does it possibly undermine actions the board or the district has already started? Only the board and district can answer that, and not publicly. You see, that is personal information regarding disciplinary action and cannot be disclosed. Nor can you personally disclose it, Ms. Grease, if you are informed as to what is going on to anyone else who is not a member of the board. Then came the Signal article. Ms. Hawkins gave a clear statement that meets all legal requirements. In this same article, Ms. Grease gives a statement that appears to not have been cleared by the district. In this quote, she admits to breaking the board policies yet again and taking personal action regarding another letter that was sent to the board and the district. I am not here to shame you, Ms. Grease, but to remind you, no, hey, you need to follow the rules, guys. We don't make comments. You need to stop too. Ms. Grease, I am here to remind you again of the procedures you must legally follow. I understand that there are those who wish to control your actions without any care as to your personal liability you may face. So I'm here to help you so that you can further your personal journey without personal liability, like lawsuits and fines leveled by the state. I would like you to please refer to the SUSD website and review the board governance handbook and the board policies. You took an oath and signed the handbook stating that you understood your job. Did you perjure yourself when you took that oath? Please review the goals of the board to act together in a unified voice as a board, not as an individual with a personal agenda. This includes media rules and disclaimers needed for your Facebook page that states that you are a board member. That does violate a couple of laws there. It also, you need to put disclaimers when you have private meetings with constituents that these are your personal opinions and you are not representing the board. This goes also for Mayor Gibbs, who was present as well at your Starbucks meeting. Did he verbally give a disclaimer that his opinions were personal and not on behalf of the city council? So just in short, some cliff notes. You need to review BP 1312, which I'm about to talk about. Oh,
Thank you. Okay, can you reset the clock for the second card?
So talking about section 3F2, the update to 1312.1, which is procedure for complaints. It is the procedure that Ms. Grease does need to review. I wanted to thank the board for going and further clarifying the 13.12. You have gone very deep into the description of what people need to do to be able to file a complaint, for it to be clear as to who is to file a complaint, what information is needed for said complaint. I do have one question though. There is slightly loose language. You talk about, you use the word may for anonymous complaints, that you may investigate them. It leaves a little bit of a loophole. The AR version does clarify very nicely the strategic and the value of why we need these complaints and how the procedure will process. But you might want to clear up a little bit of that vague language so that we don't have people abusing the system, including board members. Thank you.
Okay, we will now move on to Saugus Teachers Association. Ms. Oh, my apologies. I know you did. Hold on. Oh, I know that you did one. I'm sorry. It's probably, anyways, Tracy Ford. Here, I found it. Okay.
Hi, I'm a parent of a child at Highlands Elementary, and it's becoming very apparent that there's an issue within the district because I'm not here about an issue at Emblem. I'm here about an issue district-wide. And that recently my child has come home on occasion with being upset about something that happened in PE. The first time she witnessed a coach yelling at her classmates for acting out and then being told she would lose her free time. The few classmates that were not behaving did not change. This past week, she had picked up a ladybug and was yelled at to put it down. She was so scared of being yelled at that she began crying, wanting her dad, and saying she did not want to come back to school anymore. My child, a gymnast whose favorite class is PE, no longer enjoys PE. Why? Because Saugus, without notifying parents, moved to pay an organization to bring in young adults to teach our children PE. Those who do not have credentials nor any training that I have found showing they know how to work with children in a school setting. My child has special needs and a behavior plan. The district has yet to provide me anything showing they have provided the sub who supervises these coaches, nor the coaches, the training on her accommodations and behavior plan. If they had, they would have known that yelling at my daughter to put a ladybug down was inappropriate and caused further trauma to a child who has already suffered enough trauma at the hands of educators and adults in her life that were supposed to keep her safe. I wondered why these people could come into our schools and teach. Why did a district think that hiring people who do not hold a credential was okay? I have spoken with both parents and employees of of various schools throughout the district. I have been told that children are not getting water breaks. They're not allowed to use the restroom, have been cussed at by these coaches in at least 2 different schools. Girls are mistreated because the coaches show a preference for the boys in the class. Kids being forced to do push-ups when they lose a relay race. And employees who do not feel that they can speak up due to fear of retaliation. At the beginning of last week, I was assured that those involved in the coaching would be informed on how to work with my child, and either that happened and they ignored it, or it did not happen. I was also informed that parents think this is great, yet every parent I have spoken to had no clue that they had brought in uncredentialed teachers. And when they did hear what had happened to their child, or that the teachers were uncredentialed, they were upset. It is illegal to not let children drink water or use the restroom. Forcing a child to do push-ups for losing a relay race in PE is also illegal. And these young
Thank you,
adults
Ms.
that
Ford.
were hired to teach our children are not the best choice for this. Substitute teachers who mostly hold emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Your time is
I'm
up.
almost finished. Are not qualified to supervise these coaches, are put in positions where they do not feel comfortable speaking up or what they're witnessing. You need to hire itinerant PE teachers with credentials to teach our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Now we will move on to the Saugus Teachers Association, Ms. Samantha Ford.
Good evening, trustees and cabinet. Congratulations to each of the amazing classified honorees that were recognized this evening. We are so grateful and proud of each of you. You are the backbone of our district, and your daily efforts make a huge difference for all staff and students. We couldn't run the school district without you. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. Tomorrow is the end of the year gala for STA. We will be honoring each of our members who have given so much to the district and are ready to retire and start a new chapter in their lives. We'll also be celebrating the end of another school year full of achievements. The end of the school year is also a busy time for our teachers who are working hard to finish the final assessments in classrooms and prepare the end of the year report cards. Open house was extremely successful for the sites who have already held them. We have the remaining sites celebrating with their families this coming Thursday. It's a great opportunity to showcase the students' achievements and talents. Thank you.
Thanks. And now for CSA, Ms. Lisa Chan.
Good evening, cabinet, board members, and community. My name is Lisa Chan. I'm a 13-year paraeducator with Saugus USD and the current vice president of Chapter 112 of CSEA. Congratulations to all the classified professionals who were honored tonight. This is Classified Schools Employee Week. I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to the classified professionals for all your hard work and dedication. Our definition of classified professionals: indispensable, inspiring, and invincible. We are celebrating all the classified professionals that support our amazing teachers and administration, including clerical, custodians, library media specialists, paraeducators, campus supervisors, food service staff, and everyone behind the scenes at our district office and beyond. They are an important part in how the Saugus Union School District works and stays working every day. We celebrate all your hard work and support every day of the school year. With 13 days left of the school year, our classified professionals have been doing many jobs to ensure our students complete the school year happy, healthy, and safely. With 15 school sites preparing for promotion, our maintenance and custodial professionals are working diligently to assure a beautiful and safe ceremony for each and every site. These busy times of our school year are what we look forward to. This is where we shine and show that what we are made of, always completing the school year with a bang and seeing what we have accomplished in the 7 years these students spend with us. I would also like to take this opportunity to express our appreciation for the teachers most of us work with daily. Thank you. It's an honor to work side by side with you every school day. Together we achieve more. Thank you.
And now from the Saugus
They asked us to share some slides.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
So we'll just go through and it's photographs.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Now we have the Saugus Administrators Association, Ms. Cheryl Cameron.
Good evening, SUSD Board President, Governing Board, Superintendent, and Cabinet. I am Cheryl Cameron, Principal of Rio Vista Elementary School. I'm proud to address you tonight on behalf of the Saugus Administrators Association. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the invaluable contributions of our classified staff during this Classified Appreciation Week. It is with pride and admiration that we recognize the efforts of our librarians, campus supervisors, paraeducators, custodians, maintenance staff, cafeteria workers, office staff, and district office staff. And I'm sure I left a whole lot of people out because of all the amazing positions that they cover. Our classified staff members are the backbone of our district, working tirelessly to ensure the smooth operation of our schools. From the welcoming smiles of our office staff to the well-maintained facilities overseen by our custodians and maintenance staff, their contributions are integral to the success of our students. Together with certificated staff, they help ensure all students have the environment, the tools, and the support to learn to high standards. We celebrate their dedication, expertise, and commitment to our students and the community that surrounds them. At this time of the school year, we are completing state, district, and school level end-of-year assessments. Every year, our students who are classified as English learners take the English Learner Proficiency Assessment for California, also known as LPAC, in the spring. Those scores are beginning to roll in, and so far, they indicate great growth among our English learners. This progress is an indicator of the effectiveness of the work our students and their families are doing with their teachers to set and reach learning goals, and our teachers' efforts to stretch into using our Wonders ELD curriculum for daily designated and integrated instruction. We look forward to reclassifying many of our students to fluent English proficient over these last few weeks of school. In addition to the LPAC assessments, our students have just completed the CASP exams, showcasing their English language arts, math, and science learning. We now embark on the iReady and BPST assessments, which will further gauge their academic progress and help us tailor instruction to meet their individual academic needs. We are currently at the end of the year and our open house season. It's a perfect time to celebrate the collective efforts of our school community and reflect on the growth our students have made during this school year. The achievements we witness and community we celebrate during our open houses are a culmination of a year of good, hard work. We look forward to seeing all of you out at our school sites for these events. Rio Vistas is one of the ones that is this last week on Thursday. I hope to see some of you there. We have a mariachi and everything. And I thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. And now from the Child Development Programs, Dr. Karen Frachter.
Good evening, board members, cabinet, guests, and families. My name is Karen Frachter, speaking tonight on behalf of our Child Development Program. We would first like to congratulate all of the classified employees that were nominated for Employee of the Year. We appreciate you and all that you bring every day for our students. Tonight, we will be highlighting our state preschool program and share the ways that our program has positively impacted the growth and development of our youngest SUSD students and positively impacted our families as well. Our efforts and dedication to our families has proven our ability to consistently provide an enriching and engaging program for our community. Each year, our program is required to submit a program self-evaluation survey to the California Department of Education. To ensure that our program maintains the highest standards, we have completed the program instrument, desired results developmental profile assessments, parent surveys, and the Eckers Environmental Rating Scale, and met all the standards within each component. We're proud of the work that our preschool team has accomplished and appreciate the dedication to our students and families. Throughout the year, our preschoolers are assessed using the desired results developmental profile, DRDP, say that 5 times really fast, assessment. During the fall and spring, the preschool team is able to meet with families and discuss development of each individual student. The students are observed and the information is then transferred into the assessment. The information from the assessments allow the teachers to intentionally plan for specific topics such as literacy and math to support each student and class in the learning environment. In addition to student assessments, our environment is also required to be assessed through the Environmental Rating Scale, also known as Eckers. The data is collected over a 5-hour time frame and focuses on space and furnishings, personal care routines, language and literacy, learning activities, interactions, and program structure. Each of our 3 state preschool programs met the standards for preschool environment, and enriching environments support successful learning. Our parent surveys reflected that families are satisfied or very satisfied with the program, and that 100% of our families feel that their child is happy and safe in the program. Our preschool program has been able to increase parent engagement this school year, and one of our goals for next school year is to continue to increase this component. We were able to present many parent education meetings and provide multiple opportunities for families to share traditions in our classrooms. Our preschool and leadership team have reviewed the results of the surveys and are currently making plans for upcoming school year to continue to excel and improve to ensure we provide a quality program. The last focus to ensure a quality program is the ability to provide professional development for our preschool team. Our teachers have had the opportunity to participate in training focused on classroom assessment scoring system, behavior, social, emotional learning curriculum, and assessments, all aimed to support the classroom, students, families, and teaching team. As you can see, the state preschool program has had a successful year, and we're looking forward to planning for our upcoming school year. Thank you again for your continued support of our youngest learners.
Thank you. Now we have Ms. Janine Gonzalez, PTA Secretary.
Good evening. I'm Janine Gonzalez. I am a secretary of Rio Vista's, or the PTA secretary of Rio Vista's e-board. My daughter's in kindergarten, and this is our first year actually at Rio Vista. I also believe that this was the first year that Rio Vista was able to hold fundraising events and host again since the pandemic. So even though we haven't attended Rio Vista before, a lot of parents and teachers have expressed, as well as Ms. Cameron, that they were very excited to resume these activities again. It's been nice to see all the community get together. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. Our PTA was proud to fund and host a holiday event that highlighted our local community and different cultures around the world. We were delighted to show our local community who Rio Vista represents. We had a couple fundraisers that exceeded our expectations. We were very excited. We had a fall festival, which we had games and prizes, and it was really nice to see the community get together, and the kids were so excited. And we also held our first bubble run, which again exceeded our expectations as far as raising money. Again, it was just really nice seeing all the kids to participate and the parents as well. It was really helpful that they volunteered. When I was in school, which I won't say how long ago, but it was a while, we sold candy bars. So having these events it also, again, brings us together, and it's much more enjoyable for the students. All these will benefit, the funds that we raise will help benefit fund the field trips for next year. And while there was a concern at the beginning of this year that we wouldn't be able to fund for next year, we can comfortably say that we will be able to afford to send these kids on a field trip next year. One of the field trips we attended this year was Underwood. I was able to go with my daughter, and it's so fun to, again, to have the kids. And it's, again, when I was in school, I didn't have field trips like that. So all of these events have this first year that I've been there at Rio Vista has been a very positive experience. And so as my daughter and other families that I've spoken with as well, all these events would have not been possible without the wonderful team of our PTA parents that we have at Rio Vista Elementary School. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out to share with us tonight. And now we have the superintendent and cabinet reports. Ms. Berries.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'd like to echo what was said tonight and send congratulations and appreciation to all our classified employees of the year. I started my public education career as a special education paraprofessional, and I didn't realize it then, but as I went through the different positions as a teacher, a site administrator, and a district administrator, realized that back then how invaluable I was. I know as a teacher, I really relied on my paraprofessional. As a site administrator, they ran the school, the office. They often told me what to do, and I would echo that in our department. We couldn't do the things that we do to support the school sites, to support the families without the ladies in the office. And I've been able to work with many of the people that were presented tonight. And the things that I heard, soul of the district, backbone, I echo that. And the thing that I think really stood out to me is not only are they excellent their duties or their profession, but they are really leading the climate and culture of their school and making kids want to be there. And so on top of being excellent people, they are amazing humans. And so I just wanted to echo that. In the student studies, in our department, we are busy trying to wrap up the year. I think somebody said 13 days, and I got a lot of anxiety. We have both ends. We are doing preschool transitions and matriculations for the kids. We have been really busy with transfers upstairs. Say upstairs. We are trying to finish hiring our positions for next year and for ESY, and we are getting ready to staff amazing summer programs that start 3 days after school ends. So it is a busy, busy time of year. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Clement.
All right, good evening, everyone. I just want to touch on all of the assessments that are wrapping up, that are already finished, and that are being started between our state assessments and our district assessments. All of the teachers and all of the staff are doing all of their hard work to make sure all that's happening. So we're very thankful to them and everybody's hard work. I started kind of tracing through our classified folks as I listened to everyone, being inspired by them. And although we would seem our ed services team is somewhat small with our 2 parent liaisons and our interpreter, translator, and our office clerk, and with Monica. But then when you start to think larger, and our 34 intervention assistants, you expand into the countless folks that are helping and working in our CDP program after school. And then all of the library media specialists that are here and working with us. Then Saturdays and all the various folks that are coming to help make our Saturdays successful. And summer STEAM, which is everyone from office managers to instructional assistants to bus drivers to food service people that are coming to make that summer program come together. And it just makes you realize really how that team is everywhere and supporting us in every turn. So just want to thank them. And then just reflect on our spooktacular with our maintenance department. That was something that stuck out to me that was very unique that you don't see at a school district very often. But how they came together and participated that day, and very demandingly so and deservingly so, I believe, won some things that day. It was just unique and special. So thanks to all the classified folks for supporting us. I know Kim does certificated, but I have to give her a shout out because I realized as Jennifer was speaking, we also put payroll through the ringer with all of our programs and things that we like to add and create to help our students and our teachers throughout the years. So I know that Cynthia works with the classified side of things. So thank them both as well.
Thank you, Dr. Stevenson.
All right. Well, I know I said congratulations to our classified employees before, but as part of Classified Employee Appreciation Week, I want to highlight one person in our department, Mindy Bloom, who always wants to go above and beyond to try to bring benefits to our employees. She did some research on her own and found a service called Keenan Direct. It's part of what we get with Keenan, but it helps our employees who are not eligible for benefits through the district connect with benefits. They have people that can connect them with that. If they have children who are now beyond the age of being insured, they can work with them to help with that. And then it also helps our retirees and assist them with Medicare through talking to a certified Medicare agent and things like that. So, you know, she's always going above and beyond and really cares about our employees and wants to make sure that they're covered. So it's a nice new program that she found and she is rolling it out to all of our staff.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Henley.
Congratulations again to all the classified folks that were acknowledged this evening. Just two quick things for me. The first is the CFD refinancing that was finalized last week. When we initially talked about it with the board, the savings were going to be a little less than 10%. But the market was on our side when we went to market, and we saved a little bit more than 16% for taxpayers. The last thing is on Friday, we got to sit through the webinar from School Services of California regarding the May revise. Now Roseanne is busily finishing up our budget that we'll present to the board next week. Of a special note, COLA will be 8.22%. We are going to lose about half of what we thought we were going to receive with that learning recovery block grant. So we'll have to figure out how to work around that in the second out year. With that, thank you.
Thank you.
One quick question. What's the dollar amount of the additional monies from the CFD refund?
The dollar amount, I didn't bring that with me. I don't remember.
We can send it to you because when I say the estimated amount, he would like to have the specific amount.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. Dr. Hawkins.
Yes, good evening. I just want to thank all of the classified staff, not only the ones that were honored tonight, but all of our classified staff, because it truly does take a village to run a school district, and every single individual within the organization, all 1,400 of them, play a remarkable part. But sort of like dads who throw a lot of ground balls and things for baseball practice, and then you get thanks mom. Our teachers always get the amazing pieces, and sometimes our classified get forgotten about with that, but truly you guys do amazing things, whether it's finding those errand Post-it notes that we need at the last minute, or making sure that kids have a buddy in line, or that somebody gets their lunch when they dropped it on the ground. You do all of those things. And so thank you to everybody, and thank you specifically to our honorees. I've had the opportunity to continue doing my listening sessions with students. I've got one more and I'll have finished all 15 and then start to put together the presentation. It's been a wonderful experience getting to talk to our amazing children and hear their perspective of what the world is like. We just had a PTA event and it was really wonderful. We do this now annually, which is we bring in our PTA presidents and outgoing and incoming presidents, and we have a little luncheon and we do a little training together, and it's just always wonderful to see everybody in person. And then my final thing is I want to thank Tanya Nowakowski and Michelle Berries for all of the work that they did with our PBIS workshops over the last month. To do 5 workshops, different times, different days, with childcare, without, with people online, with people in person. I just really appreciate the effort, because I know that whether one person shows up or 100 people show up, it takes the same amount of effort to put those together. And so at this very busy time of the year, I really do appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. And now we'll have board reports, Mrs. Grease.
Thank you. So I had the opportunity to attend one of the listen and learn sessions at one of the school sites to help me better understand PBIS and just to hear general feedback from the parent community. I do want to thank Miss Berries and Miss Nowakowski, hopefully I said that right, for their time in organizing of these sessions. I want to acknowledge the work involved in not only hosting the sessions, but in implementing PBIS at all of our 15 school sites. Since its inception, I believe in 2016, if I got the stat right. I would, however, like to offer some feedback regarding the session that I attended. Was a little disappointed that the sessions weren't organized in a way that parents could actually have conversations with the district team and get answers to their questions on the day of the session. The wording used to promote these sessions was listen and learn, with an emphasis on the district listening, but parents did the listening. They were actually told during the session that no answers would be given today. In order to build trust with our parent community, they need to feel like they are being heard, not be talked at, not be made to feel like their questions will be answered at a later time, if at all. Parents take time out of their busy lives to attend these sessions, and to feel as if they aren't being heard is really disappointing. What does that say to our parent community? It appears that we don't value their time and feedback enough to provide an answer the day of. I think that we all can do better at receiving feedback, better at answering questions, better at engagement, and just overall better at listening. So I really do look forward to maybe some continued conversations to see how we can improve upon some of these sessions. It's a great first step, and it's a great addition to what we're doing to learning more about the community, but perhaps maybe in a different way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Love.
First of all, I want to say thank you and congratulations again to all of our classified employees that were recognized tonight, and all of our classified employees just generally. I echo everything everyone else has said, and I already talked a little bit about it, so I won't belabor the point, but they are amazing. I'm excited to hear Ms. Berries and Ms. Nowakowski's presentation on PBIS tonight, as we continue to add data, knowledge, and insight into all of the presentations and information that we've been stacking up with respect to our kids' learning environment and the programs that we have implemented at our school sites. I was also able to attend one of the 5 listening and learn sessions. So I have a bit of a preview of the presentation having attended. I had a different take than my colleague. I thought it was really well put together. I really appreciated the fact that there was an opportunity at the end of the session that I was at to ask questions and to make notes and give feedback about the presentation, and an opportunity to interact with the other participants that were there by sort of deciding which of those questions that you were also interested in by noting them, and some of those questions were answered. I did see, and I'm sure you'll talk about more tonight, that a lot of parents had the question about how they can support these programs at home, and I'm excited to hear even more details about how we can do that. Since the last board meeting, I was also able to attend the luncheon for the PT or the parent volunteers that we have in the parent organizations at our schools. It was a really wonderful event as well. So to all of our parent organizations, in the words of Dr. Hawkins, whether they're a PTA, PTO, PFO, LMNOQ, whatever, we appreciate all of the work that they all put in, because it truly is a ton of work, a million volunteer hours, and it's really invaluable to our kids, their supports, their experiences, their events in the classroom, out of the classroom. I mean, you're all really superheroes. And I'm so excited to visit open house this week, sending all my strength to all of our school staff as they round out the last 13 days, and then sending it to all of us parents on day 14.
Thank you. Mr. Drunky.
As Mrs. Berry's pointed out, I can't believe how close we are already to the end of another school year. I'd like to say thank you to all of our classified employees, and special congratulations to the honorees tonight. I also had the pleasure to attend a couple of the PBIS parent engagement events. I attended the events at both Helmers and Plum Canyon and thought they went very well. I also, this past Thursday, attended the Santa Clarita Valley Public Officials Night at CalArts, which is a great event for elected officials in Santa Clarita to network. I also attended the Parent Leader Organization Leadership Luncheon here at the district office this past Friday. And this past weekend, I attended a delegate assembly for the California School Boards Association up in Sacramento, representing Region 22, which is the Santa Clarita Valley and the Antelope Valley. We reviewed the governor's May revised budget, pending legislation, court cases. We heard a number of presentations from all of our standing committees. And it was really hot in Sacramento this weekend, and I'm glad I'm back here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Watson.
Thank you and good evening. Congratulations again to all of our classified employees of the year, and another thank you to all of our classified employees for all that you do. I've been busy myself since our last meeting. Last Monday, I attended the final Los Angeles County School Trustees Association meeting of the year. We heard from presenters from the Hemet Unified School District who discussed some of the terrific ELOP opportunities for the students in their district that they've come up with on campus and from home, which included a fishing club, a 3D printing club, sports, robotics, a huge variety of music programs. They're getting excellent participation rates and showing up, and it's showing up in their performance data. So if you're interested in checking out the presentation, go to the LACO or the LACSA website. We also held our annual and biannual elections, where I was named to a 2-year position as a director. Thank you all for your support. Tina Fredericks was also reelected as the LACSA president. Recently, I attended some of the listen and learn sessions on PBIS as well that we'll be hearing more about this evening. Thank you to all of our schools for hosting our communities and our families. I was able to attend a couple of the open house events at some of our campuses last week. I was absolutely thrilled to see such a tremendous turnout by our families and feel such a welcoming family-like atmosphere. It was just a joy to be on the campuses, and I know I wasn't the only one that felt that way. I know there are several more on the calendar, and I'm sure I'll see the same at the events that I plan on attending soon. The things that are going on in our classrooms every day on our campuses are so inspiring. I'm grateful for everyone that makes it all happen. And as we wind down the school year, I want to thank all of our staff and students for their hard work. I hear things like LPAC and CASP and iReady and all this stuff that's happening this time of year. And I'm reminded of just how hard our kids and their teachers are working. We're almost there, so finish strong.
Thank you. Last week, I went to open houses at Cedar Creek, Foster, and Rosedale North. Thank you to Ms. Soni, Ms. Rudder, Ms. Belina, and Ms. Celeste for taking the time to show me around and talk to me. Also to my tour buddy at Cedar Creek, Ms. Deschamps. She attended there as well. It was So excited to see the kids work. I saw some writing samples by kindergartners, and to say that I'm impressed doesn't begin to describe the wow factor. What they were writing in kindergarten, I was probably writing at the end of first grade, maybe. I also got to witness the creativity of the teachers in their assignments and in their classrooms. They make learning so interesting, so fun, and so relevant. So that was really exciting to see. I also attended the PBIS presentation at North Park. I want to thank Ms. Berries and Ms. Nowakowski again for putting together those presentations, and their whole team has done a great job with it. In our connectedness survey, it's notable that 91.06 of the staff, exact numbers for you, agreed or strongly agreed that they know and understand the PBIS system of expectations and help our students to meet those expectations at school. The similar questions on the student and parents were the 80.58% of parents and 91.41% of the students agreed or strongly agreed. And still they went the extra mile to provide these presentations for us. So thank you. And I'm really excited to see your presentation tonight, putting it all together. I would like to take a minute to express my appreciation and my respect for Dr. Colleen Hawkins. The mantra, "Together we achieve more," came from her. She's made it so much more than just a motto. It is the attitude of our district. I'm proud to say she's taken 15 separate schools and made them a team. She has set district standards while still respecting each campus's unique differences. Her passion for education, her drive to make sure that every student has their best chance. I appreciate the fact that when the numbers are less than stellar, she embraces the chance to make improvements. And when the numbers are already great, as we witnessed with the iReady numbers this year, she's still looking for ways to make them even better. This year, she has conducted listening sessions with the students. I think that is the greatest thing that I can imagine, getting right down there with the kids. And I just want to express my support, my respect, and my admiration, and say that we are lucky to have you as a superintendent. Consent calendar. Does anyone need to remove anything from the consent calendar? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as written?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, so now we get on to the thing that we're all looking forward to.
Madam President, if we could
Yes.
maybe take a 2-minute break before we start the presentation.
Certainly. Okay, we will take a break. We will recommence in 2 to 4 minutes.
Thank you.
But not 5.
All good? 4 minutes. Okay, we're back to the survey. All right. Okay, now our exciting part of the evening, the school PBIS presentation. And we are welcoming some special guests tonight, so Mary, I'll turn it over to you. No.
Are you good with the PDF? Okay. Perfect. Thank you. I'm really excited tonight because I have some special guests. I'm going to have everybody come to the podium. We are going to be talking about PBIS behavior and discipline. I have with me Ms. Nowakowski, who is a coordinator in the SST department. I have Marco Ibarra, and Ed Resnick, who are our educational partners. Did I get that right, Karen? Our educational partners in this work. They are also 2 of the people we get to work with the MTSS grant that we were 5 of the schools in LA County out of 9, I think, total for the 2-year grant. So we're really, really excited, not only to be working with these 2 gentlemen, but to dig into the work. The presentation that you're going to see tonight is, as you heard previously, we had 5 listen and learn parent workshops to talk about PBIS, what we're doing, how that relates to discipline, and student behavior. And then part of that was an activity that we had, and we will be sharing the data from the activity that we gathered from the session. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. So in Saugus, student discipline behavior, PBIS, has always been a focus. And I think that we've been working on building that and the layers of that. So it started back, and I don't know exactly the year, but I think it was 2019 with Maslow's Before Bloom. As we added that, we added our proactive problem solving team. We had PBIS implemented at schools, but only pieces of that. So what you see in front of you is a graph that really shows where we started going back to 2016 and 17. When we look at, we think about behavior and discipline, we look at the suspension rates. It's one of the markers on the dashboard that we're measured by. And so you can see the rates are really, really low for us. And of course, in 19, 20, 2021, that was COVID, and maintaining that low percentage rate throughout. We also, in terms of our bullying process and procedures, we had those in place, but we weren't tracking them and reporting them like we do now. I think I'm going on 3 years here, and we did work with our bullying investigations. This year, we worked really hard on refining our board policies, refining our forms, working with our legal department to make sure we were capturing all this and really training principals and staff about all of the procedures around there, and then tracking those and seeing those trends in data. Again, the key is we're looking for data. Where are they happening? What school sites are they happening at? Where are we seeing a trend at? And that was one of the things that sparked the listening sessions. And I saw a little bit of a trend for some students with some of the, I would say, I don't want to say hate, but I can't think of another word right now, but with some calling out of ethnicities and some religion preferences. And so I saw a little bit of a trend with that by keeping track of this. And then PBIS, you'll see in 2016-17, we list 8 sites and then the 15 sites. The reason there's asterisks there is because we have worked with our partners at LACO to include these sites, but in those years, the amount of depth or breadth or what they wanted to do was really optional. And I want to say probably last year, or maybe even this year, it's really been all is all. And so all 15 sites are getting the same information. We're implementing, we're following up, we're monitoring, we're having the conversations. Every school site has the coaches. We're doing the basic things and checking in on that. So although the sites and the numbers look similar, the way we implemented that was not with fidelity. It was more optional at the school site level. Next slide, please. So as we went to the parent listening sessions, we started with learning objectives about the presentation. And so a key piece of that, of course, was to learn about PBIS and supports and really what that was, how that was connected to school discipline. And we also wanted to share in schools what we're able to do legally in terms of discipline, suspensions, expulsions, and the laws that surround those. We touched very little, or I shouldn't say very little, we touched a little bit on restorative practices, what that looks like, how it's implemented at the school site, and then again, shared feedback, questions, and summarize that we shared. We would be collecting that from all the different sites, from online, from in person, and sharing that with the school board tonight. There was, and we'll go into a little bit detail of prioritization activity that went along with that. Next slide, please. As we went along in the presentation, I always like to start with definitions. And so we all had the same framework or context in which to think about these two terms for the rest of the presentation. And I like to start with behavior and discipline. And so the framework that we use to talk about behavior is that behavior is communication. It's a child that is trying to satisfy some sort of unmet need. The example I like to give is when your child is a baby and they cannot talk and they're crying at some sort of a need, whether it is to be fed, whether it's to be changed because they have a dirty diaper, or whether they just wanted to be picked up and had that connection with another human. Behavior is learned. And so our premise is that behavior is taught. And so just like reading and math and writing, students don't come to school knowing all of the appropriate behavior skills. And if a student is exhibiting some inappropriate behavior, it's our job as educators to teach them the appropriate behavior or teach them a replacement for a behavior if it's inappropriate. And so we really focus on behavior and being able to teach them to change that, which then segues into discipline. And I think a lot of people think or get some feedback from parents, discipline is punitive, right? And so really we're using discipline to train, to teach, to correct. Really, again, if we want a student to do something differently, we need to teach that skill. And so that is what we use discipline for. We want to have those positive outcomes. You'll hear about that a lot. We also really try to set up the environment to prevent. That is our first basic tier, is setting that up for prevention, for inappropriate behavior for students, so they really know what to expect and what to do in those situations. And again, discipline is important and necessary for children to be safe, to learn, to have self-control, and really to grow into adults, be productive adults. And that really frames the rest of the work that we're going to talk about. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Berries. Good evening to the president of the board, members of the board, Superintendent Hawkins, members of the cabinet as well. I have to start with thanking the classified staff. I think that's just kind of been the program. I am a former principal, and I knew every day that it was not going to happen without the classified staff, whether it is on the day you recognize them, or I'm curious what the district will look like tomorrow, because they're going to be charged. Why? Because you reinforce their behaviors, right? So they're going to be doing a great job. So thank you for inviting us. It's our pleasure to be here from Los Angeles County Office of Education. My name is Ed Resnick. I have been in K-12 education for more than 30 years, 15 of it as a classroom teacher, another 15 as a site administrator. I also worked as adjunct faculty at Chapman University, and now I'm lucky enough to work across the county as an administrator. Yes, I can move it to, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Yeah, oh, it's been around tonight. I'm not getting involved. So again, my pleasure to be here. Thank you. We do represent LACO. What you see on the slide there are the members of our team. The one you may recognize is Erin Villaverde. She has been spending quite a bit of time working with Miss Nowakowski as well over the last few years, implementing PBIS. Before we move forward, I have some information to share with you. I want to introduce my colleague, Marco, and let him introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. First of all, I'm blessed to be in a space with y'all today with celebration, engagement, and clearly a community that's working together to do what's best for kids. Thank you for the investment in positive behavior interventions and support. And I was a site administrator. I was a middle school principal in Watts for quite some time. Best experience of my life. Before that, I was a social science teacher, and then I was a classified staff after school program person. So I know what it's like to be at that level. The common trend throughout my years is the importance of relationships. And I hope that we get to talk about that a little bit more today. So thank you for this time.
So on the next slide, I'd like to introduce you to what guides our work in PBIS, positive behavioral interventions and supports. The image you see on the right-hand side, sometimes referred to as the tattoo or the stamp of PBIS, and it explains, but more importantly, guides our work at school sites. Before I describe system practices and data, I want to express the importance that PBIS is a MTSS. It is a multi-tiered system of support. The goal at Tier 1, as Ms. Berries has presented, is preventative practices for all students. This is the systems piece. In a little while, you will see matrices that have been created at the school site. The work of PBIS is designed to support school side teams. And I'll explain why that's important. School site teams. We don't come from LACO and tell anybody in Saugus how to implement PBIS. Our friends here at the district office do not do that work. We provide support. We provide access to the research and the evidence-based practices so that the school site teams can make the best decisions for their school site and their school community. That's an important point. The systems that are created at the school site level are designed, again, to meet the needs of all students. A lot of that I equate to the language that we use. So when you hear about Howl or Rose or RISE or whatever the acronym is for any of the schools that you visit, that's based on a common language that's been developed at the school site so students can memorize it, so adults can memorize it, and it builds a level of predictability and safety on campus. The practices come in when we use those elements of the language that we've developed at the school site to practice at the school site. This is where the training comes in. The training comes in so staff do not have to follow lockstep exactly what's happening in the room next door, but they use that language that they've developed to create behavioral lesson plans to express what it is that the behavior expectations are on campus, which ultimately leads to safety in a classroom, in a non-classroom setting like the library, the playground, and the lunchroom, but then outside of the school as well. And it helps us with that teaching of behavior so that we can work together as a school community and therefore a larger community outside. So it's the practices that help us put the systems in place, again, collecting data all along the way. And the data comes in many forms. Tonight, very pleased to hear that it's also coming from the superintendent listening to students. It's a form of data. So bravo, brava. Thank you for that. On the next slide, I want to share with you that our work is not done in isolation here in Los Angeles County, even here in SUSD, but instead we work as part of a coalition. On the left-hand side, you see the most recent executive summary from California PBIS, formerly known as the California PBIS Coalition. The original name of coalition means we bring the 11 regions of the state of California together every month. Members of PBIS technical assistance centers from across the state meet together. We meet in person twice a year, but we meet monthly virtually to share what is happening, to share the research that we're using to implement with fidelity, to share strategies and learn from each other. What's important about our membership within California PBIS is that is also a connection to the researchers that work across the country at the National TA Center. It's those researchers, specifically two of them that we work with in California, Dr. Susan Barrett and Dr. Kent McIntosh, who you will see listed on much of the literature and the research that we refer to. They join us as well to make sure that the implementation is based on evidence-based practices, based on the data they've collected across the country and across the globe. the most recent being published in 2022. And I'll mention that most recent report shortly. This slide also emphasizes the importance of us tracking the data of the success, but not necessarily the success where there may be gaps. So tracking data consistently is important. One thing I'd like to highlight is that the schools across the country who have implemented PBIS with fidelity have shown a reduction or have identified that students were 37% less likely to be suspended. Well, the suspension issues in SUSD are not exorbitant. They're not as high as we see in other places in the state or in the country. But the key is, are we addressing these things systematically on campuses so they either maintain or reduce and continue to reduce? How do we do that? With safe and predictable learning environments. On the next slide, we share with you a little bit more of the research. And the key here is that there's a direct connection to student success. What we do with PBIS is provide the tools, the strategies to help build systems and put practices in place, evidence-based practices, and then collect the data necessary to continue that cycle of improvement over time so that students can learn. So it does improve student outcomes. It does reduce exclusionary practices, as Marco will discuss in a moment. But the other key is the emphasis on our staff, creating teacher efficacy, the efficacy of the adults who work on campus by bringing them together systematically to learn the language of the school, to learn the culture of the school, to then build that with students and families as well. So again, this is supported by the most recent MTSS-B study. We can provide you copies of it if you're interested. Kent McIntosh was one of the lead researchers on that, and that does highlight the importance of PBIS with high fidelity. Again, moving from 8 schools to 15 schools in the district with the training necessary and the support coming from you all sitting here tonight. That's what's important with regard to moving forward. On the next slide, we highlight some misconceptions. Typically, when we show up and we meet with a school site team, they say, oh, PBIS, we know about that. You give the kids a Jolly Rancher and send them back to class, right? No, it's actually about teaching, and it's also about training. Some of the misconceptions we highlight here is that it's an intervention design. Well, the key to a multi-tiered system of support is that tier 1 foundation of preventative practices. By building systems and developing training of these practices across campus for all adults on campus helps create safe environments and reduce incidents of unwanted behaviors. We emphasize that it's not about tangible rewards. Instead, we highlight the most recent adolescent brain research that has identified punitive exclusionary practices are more harmful. They are more the product of the school to prison pipeline than they are the benefits of positive reinforcements of the work that we're doing with our students. PBI is something that's designed for students with disabilities. Absolutely not the case. Tier 1 is built for all students on all campuses. In fact, again, as Marco will highlight here, it provides better supports across campus for students who have special needs, who we are required by federal law to meet those needs within an IEP. And then, of course, PBIS is for behavior, RTI is for academics. Again, I refer to the research that I've stated earlier. When you set up a safe and predictable learning environment so that students can learn, it increases student outcomes as well. We also have to recognize on the next slide that the landscape has changed. Gone are the days when little Eddie Resnick got sent to the principal's office and there was a potential that he may get a SWAT. That cannot occur legally anymore. Corporal punishment has been removed from schools. Too bad I was about 40 years too late, but that's okay. It is what it is, and I'm not here to complain about it. However, with those changes, again, we refer to the adolescent brain research over the last decade, specifically from Dr. Galvan at UCLA, highlighting the importance of acknowledgement, of reinforcement, of positive over punitive responses to student behaviors, not student misbehaviors, but student behaviors. And if we respond in exclusionary punitive ways, the long-lasting effects are proven again with the research, and we can reverse that when we have systems and practices in place that are then engaged with reinforcing behaviors. On the next slide, if the research is not enough, have a choice. State law dictates specifically 2 assembly bills have guided the work. I was an assistant principal at middle school. Teacher sent students to me with the expectation that if that student leaves, we can finally get to work. That might have been the case for about an hour. Then that student goes back, but nothing has changed. He's still the same student or she's still the same student. So we build teaching into this plan. Other means of correction comes into play. We as school sites, we as school districts, we as LEAs, local education areas, are now bound by AB 1729 to create and enact other means of correction on campus. We have to have other tools in our belt other than suspension. It's not the only answer, but with that, we also have to work with staff, not principals, not teachers, not classified, everyone on campus, all adults on campus. And tonight was an excellent example of that. You heard of the number of classified staff represented on the PBIS teams at these school sites. So they have a voice. The custodian has a different lens than a 3rd grade teacher and vice versa. But when they come to the table together, they can meet the needs of students. Assembly Bill 420 highlighted the importance of no longer allowing suspensions for disruption or willful defiance. When I started my teaching career, teachers were asking that students be suspended for being willfully defiant. Not bringing a pencil was their excuse of willful defiance. The state now does not allow that. However, this slide is now out of date because that law has been updated to K through 8, and we are very close to the assembly bill that will prove that we cannot suspend students for defiance or willful defiance or disruption K-12, which means we have to have plans in place. We have to train our staff to work together, to work with students, and to help us all respond to behaviors that are happening on campus. And we've proven that we're able to do that. So moving forward, I want to share a little bit more information about the realities of suspension and ask Marco to take over. Marco?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Dr. Resnick. Appreciate it. So as a middle school principal, I had to deal with the issue of do I suspend or not suspend, right? And with other means, with Assembly Bill 1729, I had to ensure that I created systems on campus that I had other opportunities to provide other means of correction or alternative disciplines. PBIS does not mean that there's no suspension. So that's another misconception that sometimes is thrown out that all kids don't get suspended. Actually, there are 5 categories up here that would result in a principal recommending for expulsion. And I'm sure y'all have dealt with that at some point. The other categories on there are the ones that we're looking at what are these other means of correction that we're talking about. And PBIS does create the systems at a school site to be able to provide those other means of correction. And some of those are around this idea of restorative practices. And we'll talk about that in a little bit later. So moving on to the next slide. So the goal of PBIS and as it relates to other means of correction is teaching. The goal is to teach in order to change the behavior. Again, we're talking about children who are still developing. They're still learning the behavior. A lot of it they're modeling. They're learning from who they see and who are the people around them. So when you develop practices like a school-wide metrics where the behaviors are clearly defined and all adults are following those, it is much easier for an adolescent to follow those expectations because everyone's on the same page. Again, the idea is to teach and to change the behavior. PBIS does not ignore behavior that's impacted. Actually, there's a practice where the staff at a school site creates what is called a minors and majors chart, and the behaviors fall in one of the 2 categories. And then you create a flow chart, meaning when a kid demonstrates one of these behaviors, there's a clear consequence ladder that takes place. And that is put together by the staff of a school through the PBIS team at the school site and shared through PD. And once it's implemented with fidelity, you'll see a consistent response to behaviors across the school. Again, highlighting this idea of predictability. And kids, when they know what the expectations are, they know what the consequences are, they're more likely to ensure that they meet the desired behavior. It's not absence of a system. So you can't say, hey, I'm going to start PBIS tomorrow. Let's go. Like it's not simple. You can't just say it. It's a matter of training the folks around you. It takes time. It is a system, and it requires a form of evolution of what the school climate is at the school site. And so it does take time. It does take effort of the team. You do want to take small steps before you go big. It's anything that you roll out, any kind of initiative that you roll out at a school site. It does take time and investment. And again, going back to this idea of the flow chart, there's consequences, and that's illustrated in that flow chart. And so most of the schools have that in place, and you can reference that to identify what those are. Next slide, please. Examples of other means of correction. So again, this is falling back into what PBIS is, and there was a huge emphasis on data. And data can be collected both through listening tours, through actually looking at office discipline referrals, to having conversations with the family to collect information about the home life. But one of the first components of ensuring that you are successfully supporting the needs of students is understanding the student and their needs. That can happen through collaborations with families, community members. If a student has an independent educational plan, having IEP meetings and asking those questions, having those parents in those meetings, and making sure that the teams land on interventions that meet the needs of students. Other supports, and especially some of these have highlighted, we've seen an increase of the need for these types of supports after the pandemic, knowing the trauma that most of our children and families and staff have experienced as a result of the pandemic. But looking at mental health supports, looking at social services, academic supports, getting the kid involved in extracurricular, or even having a buddy system in place. And, there's different ways, different types of interventions to meet the needs that are identified in that data analysis that the teams go to figure out what's going on. And some of the restorative practices that are highlighted here, and this is not an exhaustive list, there's many more, I promise y'all, is community service, some sort of restoration project at the school site, some kind of individual project to show how they learn and what they learn from the behavior that they engaged in, a restorative circle if the parties are open to it, right? Of course. And again, the onus of that is on the person that committed the harm. And I'll go into a little bit of what restorative practices look like and how it connects to PBIS in a later slide. Next slide. So students with disabilities may require additional behavior supports. We know we have IDEA, Americans with Disabilities Act. Kids that have mental health needs or any type of health needs in general have Section 504. And all of these legal requirements provide additional protections for kids to ensure that their needs are being met across campus. So one of the what PBIS isn't is one size fits all approach. And these laws and these requirements, these legal protections require us to differentiate the support based on the student need as a result of the meetings with the team during the IEP or the 504 meetings, depending on what the kid is demonstrating. Additional procedures that are put in place, and these are correlated to what we consider tier 3 interventions in the PBIS multi-tiered systems and support framework because they're so individualized, is the IEP meeting, a manifestation determination. This is a situation where a kid demonstrates a behavior that is not consistent with the expectations. The team has to determine whether that behavior is a result of their disability. So that's an important conversation to have, because if it is, technically you need to provide the supports and ensure that the kid has the right tools or resources to be able to engage in a way that does meet the desired behavior. Additional assessments at time, especially younger kids, some things may develop over time and you might start seeing different types of behavior. You may want to reassess to determine if there may be something else happening. Again, the assessments don't mean that the kid will be diagnosed with something, but it's just an extra way to filter that process or ensure that we covered all means. And then finally, the behavioral support plans, which are also, they're binded to the IEP, and the behavioral support plans are correlated with a lot of the PBIS framework, like how do you reinforce positive behavior in class, frequent checks, some of the different components are included as the interventions of a student with a learning disability. The goal is to integrate as much as the PBIS programming into these systems so that they don't become two separate things. Next slide. Restorative approaches. the key component of restorative approach is really understanding people and the relationships between the two, and understanding that when behavior is conducted that impacts or causes harm, there's been an impact on the relationship between either the community and the person doing it, or between two different people. So the restorative approach is, how do you restore those relationships? How do you bring the community back together? How do you hold those conversations to ensure we're all on the same page and we respect each other and move forward? At times when a behavior is one that results in harm done to a building or to a facility, a lot of the times is engaging in community service, because you're going to clean up the area, or you're going to paint over the wall, you graffiti it, or you name it. Again, what these restorative approaches are would depend on what the team agrees on. And that's why it's important to circle back to that PBIS team on the school site, to have clear definition, clear consequences to the different things that they identify or see based on the trends that they receive when they analyze the data. Next slide. Thank you. And this is the tale of two schools, and going from this idea of what does it mean to have a zero tolerance educational system to a one that is more restorative. And this is a story of a student named Carlos. Carlos had an argument with his parents in the morning. And so I'm going to take you down the two different scenarios based on the two different systems. So most kids, when they leave their home, they get an act of affection from their parent. This was not that case. So the kid already started off the day with some kind of conflict or some sort of stressor. So then the kid arrives to the zero tolerance educational system, and I'm going to go down that track first. This is a school that tolerates no type of misbehavior, you name it. There's just no tolerance of that. And so he's greeted by a metal detector and a police search, and this has happened, and there's been a history of that in certain schools. And so he's, you already had that argument in the morning, now you're being searched. So then Carlos arrives late to class, and the first thing that happens is teacher scolds him in front of the whole class. He talks back, so then he gets a detention. So then he's upset now. He had an argument in the morning. He was searched. He got scolded in class. Now he's in detention. And so he gets in an altercation, a minor altercation during lunch. A police officer then arrests him. And then he spends the afternoon in juvenile detention and misses school. Now, clearly, this is an extreme case, right? Now I'm going through the two extremes here. But this is a situation where there is no type of opportunities for restoration and no opportunities for inquiry. No one's trying to find out what's going on with Carlos here. There's just a quick response to all the things that he does. In the restorative practice educational system, there's a practice called positive greetings. And so if the school's implementing positive greetings, then that means that as Carlos enters the school, he is greeted positively by the teachers, staff, administration, everybody. So the first thing he gets is a positive interaction. He's still frustrated, right? But at least he got that little bit of, love in the morning. He arrives late to his class, but the teacher, instead of scolding him in front of the whole class, the teacher asks him to stay after class. And in that conversation, the teacher asks what's going on. Like, hey, tell me more, what's happening? There's still a consequence, right? Because he still arrived late. But at this point, the teacher has more information. And you'll see later on what happens with that information. So then Carlos is still, still struggling that day. He gets in a minor altercation, but instead of going with the police officer, he engages in a mediation between the student and the other student that he had the altercation with. They reach some sort of agreement, and there is now an opportunity to bring families. And you'll see in the last step, there's a parent conference at the end. They include the social worker and the teacher that was involved in the earlier altercations. And the purpose of that meeting is to identify what's happening with Carlos, the needs that need to be, the interventions that need to be put in place to identify, to meet the needs that, or whatever issues that Carlos is struggling with. And now Carlos has the opportunity to continue to be a part of the community. Carlos will be there the next day. And the goal, of course, is to ensure that we teach Carlos what the right behavior is, or the right coping strategies, you name it, and so that he is successful at the school site. All right, so now I'm gonna pass it to Tanya Nowakowski. Thank you so much.
Not that tall. Thank you. So far we've heard about the research, and we've heard about the big picture for PBIS, and now we're going to dive into what it looks like here at Saugus. As you heard, PBIS is a system, and there are evidence-based practices that are key components to ensure that we have in place to make sure and to measure our fidelity of how we're implementing. So this slide reviews those. Those are live links in the document. So if you get home and you download the presentation, you should be able to also click on those links and open those documents as well. But the top photo is Superstar tickets from Sky Blue Mesa, and that is part of the positive reinforcement strategies. You'll see in the bottom photo, it is a school store at Plum Canyon. And in addition to material things such as games and little tchotchkes like slime and fun things that parents love, there's also on that whiteboard things like principal for a half hour for so many tickets, or lunch with a staff member for so many tickets. So we're trying to meet the needs of all students, those who are motivated by kind of tangible items, those who are motivated by adult attention and engagement. So each site, again, kind of works with their own team to demonstrate and develop what's going to be most meaningful for their students. We have the school behavior matrix. So each school, again, develops their own matrix, and we'll have a sample of that. We have classroom behavior matrices, which are developed by the classroom teachers. So they generally align with the school matrix expectations. So for example, Bridgeport is best. So the classroom matrix would also be lined up against best. But in one classroom, the teacher might ask the students to put their water bottle on their desk when they're unpacking their backpack. Others might have a water desk, and so everyone puts their water bottle on the desk. But those kinds of routines and procedures are individualized by the classroom. And that really builds that safe and predictable environment for students because they know what's expected of them as they kind of come in or transition between different things. As Dr. Resnick mentioned, there's also explicit teaching of expected behaviors. So teachers create lesson plans and really teach and review and practice with students what those behaviors are. So some of our sites have things like a passport so that they model and they teach across the different areas across campus. And then they get a stamp on their passport, like you passed the MPR behavioral expectations. Now you get to go to the playground and let's try the expectations there. And again, looking at the reinforcement system for positive behaviors as well, which again is kind of visualized in those tickets above, excuse me. Next slide, please. So some of our other evidence-based practices that are key components of PBIS is the flow chart. And I believe Dr. Resnick also spoke about that. That is a site, team, staff-driven conversation around what falls into majors and what falls into minors. Behaviors that are identified as minors are generally handled at the staff level. So if it happens in a classroom, the classroom teacher is addressing that behavior. If it happens on the playground, a campus supervisor or other staff member who witnesses it is addressing that behavior. So they're correcting, they are doing restorative if needed, they are maybe reteaching the expected behavior so that the student is corrected as quickly to the behavior as possible. Over time, if there are a pattern of minor behaviors that are the same, so those would be looked at as kind of chronic, they may be dealt with as a major behavior, meaning that there would be some office or administrator involvement in remediating what that strategy looks like. The last piece of the evidence-based practices that we utilize are gathering and using the data regarding behaviors. So for each of those behaviors, again, whether it's major or minor, the teacher, staff member, administrator, whoever is the adult helping the student through that behavior completes an office discipline referral. Some sites call them behavior management referrals, also known as a bummer. So depending on which school site your student may be at, we complete this documentation, which we enter into a system that aggregates the data for us. I'll get into that a little bit more. Next slide, please. So these are some photos of what PBIS looks like across Saugus Union. You'll see there are student stores, there's 20 tickets for different items, the Howl expectations over at Helmer's, You'll see the store opening times, again, building that predictability and routine for students. So they're not guessing like, as the store open is like, I remember that commercial, like open, right? But this way students know when the store is open and when they have access to it so they can save up all their tickets and then go spend those. Next slide, please. These are additional photos of PBIS around campus. And, we also talked about the system that it impacts staff and it increases teacher efficacy. So some of our sites have staff shout out boards. So it's not only for students, but also for staff. And again, it's not just teachers, it's any staff on campus because we all engage on the daily around PBIS. There are some different playground expectations. And again, they're site specific. Each campus has different playground materials, different games. You heard today in the classified recognition, some folks are doing play works with different games. So we really tailor it at each site based on what that site team has identified, usually using feedback from staff and or students. Next slide, please. So this is a sample matrix, and I did identify that it's partial because it's cut off at the bottom, but you'll see that this is our Cedar Creek school-wide behavioral expectations, and their acronym is ROAR. So it's respect self and others, own your actions, act safely, and show responsibility. And you'll see that goes across the top. And down the left column, it says classroom, which again is individualized in the classroom, playground, lunch areas, and it continues down into different areas. Side note, the link to this full matrix is in about 4 slides earlier where it said sample. So you'll note also that the expected behaviors are written in a positive manner. So on the playground, we include others, we play fairly, we be a good, we're being a good sport. We even note that there's a warning flag at 10-minute mark, because again, we know that students need that predictability and routine. And if you've ever tried to take a little kid who is knee deep in something that they are convinced they need to finish, that transition time and warning is very important. It's also written positively because anyone that has maybe interacted with a child who's doing something that you don't want them to do, when you say, don't hit your brother, for example, all they hear is hit your brother. And so really phrasing it and saying, we keep our hands to ourselves, or we have quiet hands. You're stating the positive. So you're telling them what the expected behavior is, which is very difficult for adults, myself included, to be like, oh, wait, I have to focus on what I want you to do, not what I want you to stop doing. Next slide, please. This again is a sample flow chart. This example is from Helmer's, and it's also cut off at the bottom. So feel free to click the link in the PowerPoint. But you'll see that the behaviors are identified as major I'm looking at it different. On one side, it says major, and on the other side, it says minor. And you'll follow the flow chart depending on which category the behavior falls into. And you'll see that if it is a teacher managed behavior or a staff managed behavior, there is a process where the staff member will connect with the student, find out what's going on, maybe what was the antecedent or what was happening right before that behavior. And then we might talk through and reteach how we want that to look different next time. For the majors, it's a referral to the office or the administrator. And again, there is a menu of options, if you will, depending on what the circumstances are for that student, for their behavior. Right? If it's Carlos coming in, we might treat that differently than if it's, Billy, who has been in his 4th fight this week and, everything's groovy at home. So those kinds of factors are part of the process in looking at what is the appropriate discipline and or consequence in regards to the behavior and how we're working with that student around changing that behavior. Next slide, please. This is a sample behavior management referral, also known as a bummer, or an office discipline referral, also known as an ODR. Each site, again, this correlates with each site's individualized flow chart. So it matches, I don't remember whose this is, which site this is from, might be North Park. But nonetheless, it follows, when did the behavior occur? What time of day? What location? What was the behavior? Were there other students involved? And so as the person who is addressing the behavior and working with the student on that behavior completes this form, it then gets turned in and input into our data system, which we use a platform for that. That allows us to run reports by school site. So we can look at higher level trends, whether it's like grade level. So, oh, the third grade seems to be having a problem with physical aggression. Let's do some class lessons, or let's reteach what that behavior should look like, and keeping our hands to ourselves. We can also hone in down to the individual student to see how many individual referrals or data points are around a specific student. It also allows us to look at where it's happening so we can hone in. If we know that we're continuing to have problems lining up at lunch, for example, we can work on reteaching and rebuilding that procedure and routine. And again, keeping that reteaching frame with the thought that like the data is suggesting we have a system breakdown, that it's not a child who is, you know, kind of off the chart on that behavior. So it allows us to look at what level of intervention. Our norm is always to go to that tier 1 universal intervention so we can prevent problem behaviors or challenging behaviors. And so we always look at what can we as the adults do to support the appropriate and expected behavior before we necessarily dive in and kind of look at individual students if the data doesn't support that. Next slide, please. So we did have 5 learn and listen sessions across the district. We held them on 5 different dates. We held 3 evening sessions, 2 morning sessions at 5 different sites. So we were all over. We allowed for in-person as well as virtual options, and we provided childcare and some light refreshments. So our total attendees was 54, which again, given this time of year, like we can live with that. We know everybody's on the hamster wheel. But we also wanted to make sure that we provided Spanish translation. So we did that for 2 of our sessions as well, so that we had that accessible for folks. We did record one of the English presentations, which we will be posting on Parent Square by May 25th, so that anybody who was not able to participate in person or virtually will still be able to get the information. And I will provide also an option and a resource of ways that they can contribute feedback, whether they would like to do that anonymously or you know, through Parent Square. So I'll include those instructions as well when I post it. For the Spanish version, we will record it. Because of the captions at the bottom, we will need to do that separately. So that one will be posted a little bit later, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that would probably be coming by June 1st-ish. We just need to do that in a closed space with very little background noise. The format of the workshops was that Ms. Berries and I spoke for approximately 30 minutes, covering much of the same information that we've presented tonight. And the intention was really to provide information and context about not only PBIS, but also discipline and what the legal parameters are, but also how we use discipline in Saugus Union and connect it to restorative practices. So we provided information, and we then had a feedback activity where we allowed for participants in person, got to write on sticky notes their comments or note any questions. And those who participated virtually were able to use the Jamboard feature, which is kind of like a virtual sticky note, if you will, and provide their comments, feedback, and questions as well. After we did that part, we allowed for each person to have some prioritization stickers. So they were little dots, and then they got to consider all of the feedback in the room and prioritize using their dots what was most important for them, for the district to really kind of take back as priority areas to focus on as we continue this work moving forward. Next slide, please. So this is a sampling, and it's a ranked sampling. So the ones that received the highest number of prioritization dots are shown at the top with, I think it's 5 dots. I'm like, and goes down to 1. There were many more questions, and those have also been provided to the public on a couple slides ahead. I'll point that out so you can see the entire kind of picture of what the questions were. But the prioritized questions, there was great diversity, but it was things like, can school sites provide PBIS tools to use at home? Will the data collected about PBIS from specific school sites be shared with families? How much time in professional development is spent on restorative practices? Can you talk a little bit about how and when you communicate with parents about their specific child positive and or negative? So you'll see we're just gathering the questions right now. And part of why, we really took that listening stance is because that might look different at each site. As you've heard, PBIS is a site-driven model dependent upon staff input, student input, we have students on the PBIS team as well as looking at what are the needs. So to answer those questions from a district level perspective would not necessarily be fair at the point in time that we were having the conversation, because I don't know what happens at all 15 sites because I don't sit at all 15 sites. What I can tell you is administrators have a framework based on their flow chart. And so some of those questions will be answered. Things like professional development, that's an ongoing practice. And we do that not only for restorative practices and PBIS, but also for things like curriculum and things like iReady. So we do those things across the board. But this is a sampling of the prioritized questions. And again, these will help inform us as we continue to meet as a district-wide team. So we meet on a monthly basis with PBIS coaches and administrators, and we have those conversations and those learning conversations from each other. So what's happening at one site might be a great idea for another site, or another site might say that won't work for our site based on A, B, and C, but we're doing this. So we try to build that learning community across our PBIS coaches. So we're not all identical, but we're all learning from each other. Next slide, please. Similarly to the questions, we've provided the prioritized feedback responses from attendees. And that looks like anything from, maybe you can include a recording of this in new parent onboarding package. It's very helpful. I appreciate the focus on relationships and restorative practices. Bummer and ODR need to be given to parents. So there's different feedback pieces, but again, this is feedback for us to consider as we look at where can we have alignment across a district and what needs to remain site focused. And part of that, as we know, is like the staff are the one, like teachers, all the staff on site, like they're the ones doing the work on the daily. It is not, it doesn't always go over really well when people at the district go, hey, you guys go do this, and good luck with that. So it's really important for them to have voice and be able to share what they see on the daily to really inform what their practices look like. Next slide, please.
I just wanted to say, can you go back one slide?
Sorry.
The table's cut off a little bit. The bottom one, or that you can't see on the left, is 2 dots, and all of the ones to the right are 1 dot.
Sorry, I fixed it this morning, but I forgot to send it to you. My apologies. It'll be fixed in the when we post. Thank you. It's in the printed one. Thank you. For parking lot questions, we also allowed for parking lot because people came in with, questions and things maybe that were on their mind, but that we weren't necessarily kind of living in that PBIS lane. And we only had one parking lot question, which was really, is there more information on social emotional learning and what is being taught at school in the classroom? So yes, there is more information and we will provide that in a different context. But this is also an opportunity for us to say, maybe we publish these questions and we respond like in kind of an FAQ document. So we will explore those things to answer and respond to questions. But again, some of them will be site specific and maybe not addressed at a district wide perspective. Next slide, please. So this is a list of resources and references. So we've provided California Ed Code, which talks about suspension and other means of correction, the California PBIS website, restorative practices website. We've included the district policy on suspension and expulsion, the district policy on discipline. We also provided an article about the school suspensions, the impact of school suspensions from the National Education Association. We also provided the Institute of Education Sciences key takeaways around MTSS, which includes PBIS. And then see that little thing that says, see a link here for all attendee feedback from all sessions. That's where you will find all of the comments and feedback, all of the questions, whether they had 5 prioritization dots or 0. Every comment that we collected is on that document. So feel free to visit those. And next slide, please. And this is where we kind of look ahead. So we've talked a lot about where we've been and what we've done. You saw the chart at the beginning about how we started with 8 schools, moved to 15, but it was really individualized about how deep and wide the implementation was, but also what the accountability may have been to that. Then enter COVID, where most PBIS things halted. There were procedures and routines, things like students had to keep their cameras on. They couldn't be eating on camera. Don't take your laptop into the bathroom. But generally that kind of building of community and that positive reinforcement was not able to occur in the way in which we see it now. The current state is that last year, all 15 of our school sites achieved some level of state recognition for their PBIS implementation. Those levels are bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. All of our 15 sites hit either silver or gold. So again, it's an outside committee that looks at our fidelity data. So how well are we implementing? What does our data look like? What do our action plans look like? How often does our team meet? So there's a number of items that that we need to submit for consideration. And all 15 sites, again, applied for state recognition this year. And we'll find out, I think, September, October, how many were awarded state recognition. We also this year, I think as Ms. Berry's noted, have really focused on team building across the district. So bringing PBIS coaches together, even with the challenge of how many guest teachers were able to get to create that space for them. We've been creative. They have been willing to stay after school and have those meetings and conversations. So it's been a really great committed team who are also really wanting to do what's best for kids and staff and families. And where we're headed is, as you heard, 5 of our sites received a California ISP grant where we will deepen this work with those 5 sites. And the remaining 10 sites will continue to have technical assistance, coaching, and professional development from our LACO partners, as well as from our district staff to really continue to move their fidelity and their tools and implementation. So that is where we're looking ahead to next year. Last slide, I think. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I know this was a lot. This is way longer than most of our presentations normally go. But we felt it was really important to provide the community, the larger community, also all of the input and feedback that we received from people who attended, but also the information and where we are. So I'll stop talking so folks can ask questions.
I do, but just to start, are we, I thought part of the agenda was to also have Dr. Hawkins tell us what was discussed during the students.
That's on June 6th, because she still has one more.
Okay.
It's on the agenda.
Thanks. Just asking. I do have just, I guess, some initial questions. So I think this is great. And it works for about 80–90% of our students. What I'm interested in is understanding for the chronic behavioral problems, the habitual behavioral problems where maybe this doesn't work, and what, dare I say, consequences come out of that. Because I think there are within our community a lot of examples where there is chronic issues where it's a repetitive reward system and it's not working. So when do we identify that it's actually not working for this particular student or a small minority of students, and quickly pivot and figure out what is the actual consequence? Maybe a consequence in that instance is the best thing to do. So what does that look like for that group? And what happens?
I'll start and you can finish. I'll begin with the fact that it does exist at the school site level. So we're not recommending that the schools address what's going on outside of the school site or the community.
Correct.
Community issue. We don't get involved in that. We don't advocate for getting involved in that. We try to create a community within a school site, if you will. And then a lot of it has to do with what Ms. Nowakowski shared with regard to the collection of data, because oftentimes what we found and what research tells us is that there are needs, there are supports that have never been afforded to these students because we don't have data as to why. If a student has an outburst for whatever reason, as Ms. Berry had pointed out, behavior is typically a form of communication, particularly when we're working with elementary students. And what we know from the science is that students are either attempting to avoid or to get something. Oftentimes it's to get attention. We don't know that until we collect some data, and then we can change the context of learning for that child. So until we collect adequate data, and most schools can't collect data because they don't have systems in place to collect it and or analyze it, and therefore provide the right referrals to provide support.
So what do we do at Saugus specifically? Because I find it hard to believe that when we have chronic behavior that is happening weekly, that it's hard for us to have the data when it is happening so frequently. And we have heard about this stuff at numerous school sites for months and months. And I personally find it hard to believe that to us isn't enough data to really look at the small minority of students that have issues that aren't being supported or corrected by PBIS in the way that it should be. So what do you do specifically?
I think that's a really good question, and you're going to hate my answer. It's going to be, it depends.
It totally depends, but I'm looking for it. Like none of what we reviewed in here tells me that. So what are the different?
I think you're absolutely right. Like any program or thing we put in place for students isn't meant to address 100% of the students. It's going to work for 80, 90, 95%, 98% of the students. And there are going to be some students that those strategies aren't working. And so then we layer on the tiers, like tier 2, tier 3, right? And I think some of the examples that we've heard at board meetings about students with behaviors have been students who have disability related disabilities that are related to their behaviors. So in the example, if we have a student that continually is having outbursts or having a hard time, keeping them hands to themselves, then we're looking at that student as a general ed student. Maybe they haven't been identified first, right? And so then we're trying other means of correction. We're trying to identify why this keeps happening. We're looking at progressive discipline or progressive other means of correction. Maybe the first time, we have a conference with a student, maybe the second time, I'm just going to give an example. It's always happening during unstructured time at recess. And right. So maybe the first time it happens, the new duty supervisors address it with the student. Maybe the second time it happens, they try to, again, correct the behavior. They're talking to the teacher. the teacher notices a pattern, it goes to the office. We talked about like that chronic behavior pattern may become a major. Then we notice that it turns into a bigger behavior. Maybe that particular student, we then refer for some sort of assessment, right? Because we're like, this is not typical. The other means of correction for the student, whether that's talking to the student, maybe that's assigning them an alternate recess. We're not benching students, we're not taking their recess away, but maybe they're having negative interactions with that peer group. So we try to take them away from the peer group, but still not in a punitive way, giving them that access. It's still happening. So we're continuing to analyze that student and layer on support. So now you're getting to the tier 2. Maybe that student needs to be in a small group with a social worker, a school psychologist, somebody who's teaching them the skills, maybe walking with them and showing them how to use that equipment or interact with peers like a coach appropriately. That's not working. Now we're continuing to layer on. Maybe as we go through, hey, we need to refer this student to the student study team meeting where a larger group of people are trying some interventions. Maybe our behaviorists are coming in trying to analyze what that is. We layer on those services, working with the student's still struggling. Then we might say this student may have an identified disability that is continuing the pattern of behavior. Then we go through an assessment for special education that could take up to 60 days. We have up to 60 days to have that assessment. Then the parent needs to consent, and then we put some other services in place that may be only accessible to special education. So I think that is sort of like an example of the chain. And I think also as we're going through some of those layers of supports where you hear, they're doing nothing or it's taking a really long time, because there are points in time where we're trying to add services, add, things and seeing how the students reacting. If it's improving the behavior, we're still seeing that pattern of behavior.
Well,
is that helpful?
Sort of.
Okay.
I get it. Like,
Yeah.
get it, right. I think not everyone that has these chronic behavioral problems are, special needs, right? And I hate to even like that, to me isn't even a topic, right? It's just behavioral issues. So what happens when you have a student in gen ed that's not in a special day class or anything like that, or hasn't been evaluated, doesn't need to be evaluated? What happens? Because they are still in the classroom day in, day out, making disruptions when 27 other kids are not able to focus on learning, right? Because I'm sure the teacher is then prioritizing the needs of that one student. Like, what happens to the rest of the students? What happens to that teacher?
I think, again, it's going to depend. It's going to depend on the age. It's going to depend on what's happening in the class. Sometimes, sort of that same typical layer of services where we have our tier 1. If you have a student that's a gen ed student that's disruptive, whether they're having negative peer interactions or it's physical disruption, we may add extra support to the class. We may end up changing the student's classroom. We may end up having, other supports for that student that aren't special education. And we do sometimes, and I would say this is probably for older students, not like a TKK1 student, that students are in school suspension or out of school suspension. But really, when we talked about the other means of correction and the tools in our toolbox, that's really one of the last tools we go to is suspension for a student. But there are some behaviors that we just say, this is unsafe, and we've tried other things, and now the student needs to take a little bit of a pause. And when we do a suspension out of school, we also pair that with something that's, I would say, restorative in the sense that they're learning a lesson, right? So again, suspension, if you have a student that is unable to read or doesn't have acquired the skill of reading, we don't send the student home and have them come back and expect that they're going to be proficient in reading or have made up that deficit. So it's the same with the suspension. If a student is suspended for a behavior because they continually behave inappropriately and we've tried to correct that, then if they are suspended, we pair that with something that's teachable or teaching them. So if they come into that same situation, then they'll have different skills or they'll think twice. So they'll have different tools in their toolbox to behave more appropriately in that same situation.
So what happens when there's no additional support that's available for a school, a classroom where there are issues? What happens? So is the expectation that the teacher, again, is the one that handles that one particular student while 26, 27, 28 other students are left? Is that just, it is what it is?
I guess, I'm not sure. Are you talking just like on a one-time basis, or are you talking about an ongoing basis?
Both. So I'm just trying to understand when there's no available support to have in the classrooms, like you mentioned, like one of the options could be able to have additional aides in the classrooms, additional support, additional volunteers. What if that's not an option? Is it just, it is what it is. The teacher is going to have to figure out how to de-escalate that one student while the rest of the students are reading on their own or self-instructing? Like, what is that?
I think in the moment that you have a student that is disruptive and the teacher is trying to layer on these things or work with the things, you may have a moment where they haven't yet identified that particular class or that teacher needs extra support, right? And so in that moment, it may be that there's not extra support for that student. But again, as we're working through interventions and layers, that teacher isn't alone. We have support staff on campus, a variety of staff that can come and help for that particular student, for that particular teacher. Maybe not that one time because it wasn't predictable, or maybe there wasn't somebody available, but there are usually people on campus, especially if a student has been exhibiting behavior, been to the office, and the staff are aware of the student, that they are trying to figure out what are those next layers of support. In the event that a classroom needs to be evacuated, or a student has a really big behavior, then I would expect that there would be extra staff to come in that one emergency moment.
Yeah, I think that's great in theory. I really do. I don't think that happens all the time. I don't think that there are enough staff at each of our school sites to address things like that 100% of the time. So it's how do we ensure that we do have enough support at the schools to do exactly what you just said? Because I just don't believe that happens. I know it requires more staff, more money, right? Like, I think that we all would love more staff, right? More aides in the classroom to help out. So are we looking at ways to do that? Or are we just square peg in a round hole? Like, we've got to make PBIS work.
I think it's not just about PBIS, it's about all the systems that we talked about working together, where, PBIS, we have the curriculum with SEL, we have our different layers of intervention supports, our mental health team, our proactive problem solving team, we have our school psychologists, we have, our principals, our assistant principals, we have lots of layers of people on campus. And I do know that when we have students that are in crisis or in need, or a teacher in crisis and a need, it doesn't matter if they're a general ed student, if they're a special ed student, it really is all hands on deck here in the school system.
So another question I had is, the training for the different systems the same across teachers, classified staff, administrators? Is it all the same? So when teachers get trained on PBIS, right, and how to implement it, are classified employees that also getting the same type of training?
Can you speak to that, Tanya, a little bit?
So it's a little different because the teachers, for example, they create their classroom matrix. They have to do the lesson plans and the teaching and the reteaching. So the strategies and the amount of professional development looks a little different. I will say historically, we have not had a whole lot of opportunities for training for classified staff, but this past year, we have made that happen. And so we have provided training on PBIS. We have created new teacher orientation training on PBIS. It is a standing training item on each of our professional development opportunities. And so it does look different. Some of it is optional. We only have so many kind of mandatory and required professional development days. And so it's always an option offered for people, generally on those mandatory days as well as on voluntary days. But we try to provide as many opportunities as possible. but that's also why we have site-specific PBIS teams, because that coach and administrator also develops a training plan for any staff that they bring onto site, including guest teachers. So that's part of the process as well at each site.
So if a lot of the, occurrences are happening on the play yard, like I believe Ms. Berry spoke to, why wouldn't we ensure that those supervisors, we would mandate the same level of training for our teachers? Because they are, they're few and far between on the yard, and they are dealing with a lot of kids all at once. I would just be surprised that we're not maybe implementing the same level of training and mandate it, like I'm sure that we do with our teachers. Is that required for our teachers? So why wouldn't we also include the supervisors?
Because they're oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna, offer an example coming up. We had our Playworks training that we did when it was one of the first things we did when we returned from the pandemic. The teams that I'm sorry, not everybody came. People were nervous, they were scared, but the teams that did come, we see still the lasting results, right? Within what's going on outside. I can think of a school in particular that did really well with it. It's one of the reasons why when we looked at that educator effectiveness money, that we're gonna reinvest in that now that we're back in a more normal, typical setting where we can get everybody trained. And we're gonna do more of a hands-on on-site training where they have that coaching, because it is important for them all to be on the same page and have that same message where they can really work together to meet the needs of the kids. And we want that success that one school had as a team for all of them. It's a 2-year commitment. So we'll be able to follow up next year if we have additional staff. That's just one example of a lot of different training that we're doing. With our academic pieces, we're doing more training with our classified staff than we really ever have. Whether it be some of the morphology and the phonics training that we're doing, or some of the other best practices that we're implementing, we're offering that. They're coming, they're excited about it, they're grateful for it. So we should see that common language help, develop some continuity as well. And just the last comment that I'll make, when I hear you guys talking about this, there are so many things, and so many things are going to work for one child, but not for the other 27, right? And then you have a different behavior, and you go back to your, I'll call it the bag of tricks, so to speak. And that one thing that didn't work for this child over here is going to work for somebody else. And there are so many things that our educators are constantly implementing and trying that it's really hard to put a definitive, this is what we do for this, because it's really different for each learner.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm saying that it needs to be a one size fits all approach. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is we know of chronic behavior issues that are happening, that have been happening for the school year based on feedback that we all have received. And I agree with you that there needs to be a different approach potentially for each one of those instances. But what I'm asking is, what is the actual, when is enough enough? And what about the other children? If it's happening in the classroom, what about them? What about, their learning loss when these instances are happening, either because there's not enough support at the individual school, they haven't been evaluated yet, and it's such a long process to do that. But what happens in the meantime? And I think a lot of parents, a lot of community members, those are the questions that they have, because it impacts it impacts me. I have a student in 5th grade. I have a daughter. So it does impact me. And I think those are the things that people are asking, that I get there's not a one size fits all approach, but there's got to be something that is maybe better or different that we're doing now. I know we're doing a lot, but there's got to be something else that has faster results, because when you talk about safety and it's your child, you want it now, you don't want to wait. And I think in terms of the yard supervisors, I would hope that the rest of my colleagues would agree that they do spend a lot of time on the campus with supervisors during lunch and recess. And I feel like it is important to include them. Maybe it does need to be mandatory. Maybe it does need to have the same training so that it's a seamless approach. It's not, you know, campus supervisors do this thing and teachers and staff do this thing. So how do you marry the two so that the students feel supported? They know that if something happens on the yard and something happens in the classroom, it's the same consequence, it's the same reward, it's the same teaching. And I would just think that that's something that we would want.
If I can just add, sorry, one thing. So it may not address all of your questions, but I would say the reason those trainings look a little different, it is certainly the same message. That is why it is site driven, because there is input gathered from classified staff, certificated staff, any staff who's on campus. So they do have that aligned message. They have the aligned priorities. They are all working on the same behavioral expectations, but the toolkit looks a little different. For campus supervisors, Playworks is a tool in their toolbox. It's not the only tool, but it's a tool. Teachers, a tool in their toolbox is lesson plans and teaching expected behaviors really explicitly and reteaching. So campus supervisors also teach behaviors, but it looks different in how they manage it. They're not going to pull out a lesson plan and be able to do that same thing, but their ability to teach in the context of their tools and their environment just looks different. So that's why the trainings look a little bit different, because the tools are different, but the message is the same, that we are all here for all the students. We all review the flow chart. We all give input into the flow chart. So campus supervisors are consulted and considered in driving and kind of refining the flow chart as far as what that looks like. And they also fill out, you know, the office discipline referrals. So they are fully invested. I mean, you heard today how many of them sit on the PBIS team, which means they're looking at the data monthly. You know, they are looking at what time of day are things occurring, and they take that data and they say, how can we do it differently? Sometimes they have answers, and sometimes we're all just kind of like, what else can we do? What else can we do? But that's where the power of that multidisciplinary team comes in. And that's why that team meets on a regular basis to review the data and to talk about the systems we have in place.
Yeah, look, I think I have a lot more questions. I don't want to take too much time, so maybe I can schedule something separately with Ms. Berries and kind of run through some other questions that I have.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ms. Love.
Thank you for your presentation and for sharing all of your vast amounts of knowledge with us, and really detailed and substantial amounts of information. I really appreciate it. I think we all really appreciate it. I do have one question, which might have a follow-up depending on the answer. But you talked a little bit, I think, Ms. Nowakowski, I think you covered this slide. You talked a little bit about the bummer and the ODR document. And I'm just, you know, I'm looking at the document, and obviously you were talking a little bit about how it's a helpful data point. And because of my career, data points are important, and evidence-based changes are important to me. So I appreciate that it has all this different information on it, and that you're able to sort of use this as a data point to assess at various sites whether the same behaviors are happening, or the same student is having repeated behaviors, or the same time of day. If I missed it, I apologize. But who is looking at these, and how often, and how are we like collaborating on how to make changes based off of this data point? Because I think this is a really fantastic tracking that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. So to look at the actual bummer or ODR, generally the administrator looks at it when it's office managed and or when it hits that kind of chronic or repetitive place. There might be some diversity in that based on the site. Kind of side note. But the PBIS team looks at it on a monthly basis. And they also present it at staff meetings, I think at least twice a year. Definitely at least once a year, but they present it to all of the staff. So again, it's not just the PBIS team that's carrying the whole thing. it impacts all of the staff. So the PBIS team looks at it on a monthly basis to say, oh, this is kind of looking like an outlier, like we need to kind of do a deeper dive into that, or, oh yeah, that kind of fits with what our kind of anecdotal feel was. And so we need to do some reteaching on that. So that PBIS team is looking at it, and then they also present it to their staff meeting so that all staff are able to see that. And then they can kind of go through that problem solving or improvement discussion if needed.
So are they looking at each individual referral? Or are they looking at a database that has them collectively?
They're looking at a database that has them collectively.
And does the database sort of automatically create the analytics of like, there are 72 kinder?
It does.
bummers?
So
Okay.
it rolls it up, and then you can do a drill down report, and you can select exactly what factors you want to look at. So you can look and see if special education students are disproportionately represented in the discipline. You can look and see, is it happening in the classroom or on the playground or some other location? You can look at even what type of behavior is the highest occurring behavior. So there's different kind of toggles you can use to look at that data and have those conversations.
That sounds really great. One last follow-up to that is, are teachers able to look at this data on grade level teams? I know we're doing a lot more grade level coordination, and to the extent there are specific issues happening, like I imagine the things that we see repetitively look different on the kinder playground than on the 6th grade playground. Are they able to access that data to sort of brainstorm on reteaching and things together as a grade level?
The teachers themselves are not able to look at that data. However, part of that PBIS team would say like, oh, 3rd grade has a bit of a spike. Like, let's kind of check with our 3rd grade team and see like what's going on for them. And then they can do a deeper dive. Ideally, we would get to that place. Maybe not this year, but the next year.
Yeah.
But it's certainly something where the PBIS team looks at it and identifies kind of like where are things kind of outliers or where are things bubbling up, and then they can do that feedback loop.
So if a grade level team wanted to see their data for them, how would they access
They
that?
would ask their PBIS coach or their administrator.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's it for me.
Mr. Trump.
Thank you very much for a great presentation. And I want to thank Dr. Resnick and Mr. Barra for sticking with us all this time. I know you were here from the very beginning of the meeting. I just want to say, I think the parent engagement events that we had were great. I think the feedback that we got, here are the questions that the parents had right here on slide number 26. I wonder if Dr. Resnick or Mr. Barr, you could also speak. We know where and how PBIS has evolved here in the Saugus district. Can you speak obviously to LA County first, but maybe beyond that geographically, how this is being implemented across the state, across the country?
Yeah, I'll attempt to do that. And in fact, on the California PBIS website, they can do a better job than I can tonight. However, state of California is behind the curve. I will tell you that right now. California PBIS, the coalition, has only been around for, I believe it's a little over 10 years now. And that is because each LEA within the state of California did not come together. This coalition came together in Placer County and started to reach out to county offices across the state to come together as a coalition. That coalition then partnered with specifically the University of Oregon. University of Oregon is the holder of a lot of this data that Ms. Love was asking about. There's a website called PBIS Apps. We contract with them directly. Everybody we work with, Saugus is one of them, also taps into that to collect this data over time. So our partnership with the University of Oregon has been critical and crucial. That's where Dr. Kent McIntosh actually works and is a director of that website as well. And again, coming together with Coalition, it's put us in touch with other TA centers across the country. One of the most prominent is the Midwest PBIS network. But one of the reasons that they are so prominent is that the state funds PBIS within those regions. we still do not have state mandates other than other means of correction and the assembly bills that are supporting that work. However, we're getting closer to it because it's proving to be effective to improve student outcomes. So the states that are implementing very specifically, Florida in particular is one that is very strong with their PBIS, but it's because the state funds the programs, supplies that to the county offices of education. They partner directly with the universities. Your connection to the universities comes from us through California PBIS, and then we share their knowledge, their research with you all. So again, California is behind the curve. Marco and I are committed to put California on the map. We're committed to become the experts in Southern California. So then when somebody comes to the podium in Arizona, they say, well, we refer to LACO. So, but we're still years in the making as this is a process, as we collect data, as we learn from our friends across the country, then it grows. So in California, a little more than 10 years. Previous to that, it actually began in the 60s and 70s. And it began as a way to provide inclusive activities for students with autism. And they started to recognize that the punitive responses to student behaviors was counterintuitive and counterproductive to their learning. So instead, they developed positive responses to them. That grew into studies into the general education classroom. Then specifically, Rob Horner and George Sagai began that research partially in Oregon, partially in Connecticut, and started to publish more research in the 80s, and it gained prominence. Grew in the Midwest, floated across the country with researchers, went from researchers to educators. There's still a gap between higher ed and K-12, but we're closing it. Hopefully that answers your question.
It does, and
Yeah.
you know, you mentioned those areas that are actually specifically funding these types of programs, and I think that is one thing that certainly would help the professional development aspect of, you know, the continuous implementation and improvement process around PBIS.
Yeah, I would agree. When you help build a system within a school site and teachers feel the level of support that it provides with regard to that system and the responses the data can provide, then teachers are fully on board. And I think that was demonstrated tonight just with the classified staff who are on board as well. They contribute. So
thank you very much. That's it for me.
Mr. Watson.
Dr. Resnick, any relation to Lauren Resnick out of the University of Pittsburgh?
no.
No, okay. Her work is amazing as well. So first of all, do we know if any other districts around our valley are also using PBIS?
I'm going to refer that to Tanya. I could give you a maybe, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
What's that?
I don't know.
Okay,
it
that's
floats
fine.
In and out. We have done work in Hart.
All right.
Yeah, we have done work. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I live in Orange County, so I'm not very good with the
Sulphur
geography,
Springs,
by the way.
Newhall, Castaic.
Newhall, yes.
Okay.
We're continuing our work with Newhall.
Okay.
Yes. Castaic, no. But then further down into LA County, further south, yes.
Okay.
But those specifically, including
Terrific.
yourselves. Yeah.
Thank you. Mrs. Nowakowski, you mentioned in reference to the data that we have access to when you were responding to Ms. Love, that we can drill down, for example, to see if students with disabilities are disproportionately represented. Are we also tracking other demographic data?
We are.
Okay, fantastic. And then lastly, I really appreciate including the responses from the families and then even the link to all of the different questions and comments and suggestions. Our families provided some terrific input that's very valuable. Appreciate you including all that in the report. You said that the questions the questions that families were asking are often better handled at the site level. I just want to make sure that I understood your response to the question I hadn't yet asked. How are we working to get the questions answered to those specific families? So a family shows up, they see the presentation, they ask a question. How do they get their response?
So we're thinking a couple different things, and I'm going a little bit rogue here because we haven't necessarily consulted since the last presentation and workshop was yesterday. We haven't quite had a time to all get together and think through those things, but we've talked about a couple things over the course of the presentations. One is publishing an FAQ document and answering all of the questions and identifying those that would best be answered by site administration. So for example, whether or not or when, at what point does an administrator or a teacher reach out to a parent regarding their student's behavior, positive or negative? There's such diversity, teachers have different thresholds about what that looks like. If a teacher has addressed it, they might say, I'm not even going to talk to the parent because I've handled it and we've remediated it. Or if it's an ongoing thing, maybe they do. So we'll kind of look at all the questions and think about what might be the best lens and way to do that. So we've talked about an FAQ document. We did have sign-in sheets and we had attendance for virtual attendance or a roster for virtual attendance as well. So we can, if we do something like that, we can disperse it specifically to those folks so that they have that like direct follow-up. We've also talked about potentially putting these things on, a parent square poll at some point, maybe not this year, but maybe next year. And having people, rank them so that we try to get, more input, because this was a helpful portion of feedback and we're certain, we have more voices that we're happy to engage. So we're thinking about different ways of doing that. Earlier this year, we held a parent engagement kind of training on PBIS that our partners at LACO came and presented virtually. But now we're looking at, with the capacity that we've built for PBIS, being able to do site-specific conversations with families, whether that's a social worker, administrator, parent engagement workshop, or there's kind of like a coffee with a principal specific around PBIS. So we have different tools that we can do to kind of integrate and respond to these things. But we want to go big, but also like be able to dive into specifics.
Yeah. Because some of the questions were really good questions and supportive. How can I do this at home? What tools, what resources can you provide? And if I were principal and I saw one of my families there, I would probably follow up. But like you said, maybe Mr. Watson wasn't able to attend the meeting at his school site and went to another school's. So I think that's important to be able to follow up with the families. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
It is 10:30, which per our bylaws, we need to end. So I propose that we nix section 5 and section 9. The rest of them need to be done. And do you all agree to continue the meeting after 10:30? Thank you, Dr. Resnick and Mr. Ibarra. I didn't know you lived in Orange County. You've got quite the right ahead. That's true. I
Better
appreciate.
knock on wood now. They're gonna be doing some construction or something now that you said that.
So I appreciate the fact that in the ODR or the BMR report, intention is part of the report because, why someone does something sometimes is as important. I also appreciate the fact that you talk about that it can be taught. I know we have intervention TOSAs for academics. Do we have intervention TOSAs for behavior? Or is that the social workers?
Do we have what for behavior? I'm sorry.
Intervention TOSAs for behavior?
I would say that when you talk about interventions for behavior, we have layers of that, right? So we have our proactive problem solving team. I would say they are a team made up of a variety of people, school psychologists, BCBA, paraprofessionals, school social workers, and their expertise is in behavior specifically. But then that could be coupled with our mental health team, our social workers, really. And it could be I don't want to say treatment, but a dual approach where you're looking at a student on the surface level, you see behavior, and as you drill down, you realize that the student has some other things happening with them, maybe it's mental health, maybe it's something in the family, maybe there's a family dynamic. And so it's both a type of approach. And I would say, when you think of, our intervention TOSAs, so to speak, with ed services, it's not the same, but it's very similar. So we have those supports in place for students.
Cool. And if it's okay with you, I would like to be included in your conversation with Mrs. Green. Thanks. Thank you for your presentations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming out. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and your enthusiasm and look forward to working with you really soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Safe drive home. Okay,
Madam President, I think we can get through all of the items pretty quickly.
okay.
I don't
You
know.
all
if
down with
there's
that?
Any reason.
And I
to
do have
shorten-
questions, so I don't know how quickly, I'm just gonna be honest, so.
Okay, let's just do 6 and 8. I have a long drive tomorrow.
And
She
So-
said they can wait. The ones that we nixed.
So we'll table.
So we're skipping number 5, both of education services. Sorry,
so we'll
Mr.
table
Clement.
5A and B.
Yeah.
So we're gonna table
5A
5A and
B.
5B. Do we need to vote on that?
All in favor?
Hi.
No, I'm fine with that.
Okay, we're also gonna table number 9. Everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Tabling number 9. Yes, aye.
That was an informal vote. I'm sorry. Okay,
That's
so I have a
consensus.
motion to approve the intra-SELPA fiscal agreement between Saugus Union School District and Palmdale School District.
I do have a question.
So moved. I think
Okay.
Okay, after.
Motion
Second.
Thanks.
Okay, now it is moved and seconded. So first, you'll explain, Mrs. Berry?
So this is an agreement for a student, a special education student, and the program in which the student requires is outside of our SELPA. It's not a non-public agency. And so in order for another SELPA or school district to serve the student, we need to have this agreement in place.
What's your question on this?
Sorry, can you say that again? It may impact my question. We say it again.
Yeah, so this is for a special education student. And the program in which the student requires, or the most appropriate program for the student, is provided by another district or another SELPA. So it's not a non-public school, which is a little bit different. It's in Palmdale School District, which is a different SELPA than us. And in order for them to serve our student, we need to have an agreement that we'll work together, like, hey, we're out of your SELPA, but you agree to take the student. And so that's why we need this agreement.
So then it's not a case for our SCV SELPA to take because of, right?
Right. So in our school district and within our SELPA, we do not have a program that the student requires, but another district / SELPA does, which is Palmdale.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2022-23, number 60, resolution of the governing board of the Saugus Union School District. Use of Dave Bang Associates, Inc., CMAS 4-22-12-1015 for the CDP shade structure at Cedar Creek Elementary School.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Heinlein.
Yes, each time we exercise our option to procure an item without bidding, we ask the board to approve a resolution allowing us. This resolution allows us to use CMAS to purchase this shade structure for Cedar Creek.
Thank you. Any questions, comment? Mr. Watson.
Okay, Ms. Grease,
Aye.
Ms. Love,
Aye.
Mr. Trunky.
Aye.
I vote aye. Ms. Cooper.
Aye.
Resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you. Do I need a motion to close the meeting? Okay, next meeting is on June 6th. We all will meet on June 5th. I have a motion to close the meeting. Adjourn the meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, that can be a tie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Good night. Oh, meeting is adjourned. Good night. At 10:38.